Ottawa and CJET 101.1 FM, Smiths Falls. City News Time, 9 o'clock.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 4th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa, minus 14. In Smiths Falls, it's minus 13. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The convoy's occupation of downtown Ottawa continues with another night of rough sleep for people who live in that area. That's the sound of fireworks. They were set off around midnight. At least one resident says he was startled awake thinking it might be gunfire. Organizers behind the convoy say they're not going anywhere. Now, Ottawa police are just getting underway with a media briefing now to update media and residents on their plan for this weekend as more truckers and protesters are set to arrive. It comes as additional help will come in the form of some with a badge and some without. Here's City News reporter Chris Curries.
Let's start with the RCMP. After a request from the mayor for additional resources to help with policing, that has been approved. The public safety minister confirming that Mounties have been deployed and will be able to assist in the coming days. Now, as residents, businesses, and social service agencies raise concerns about the impacts the protest is having on their well-being, 3 councillors will be leading a walk through the core every day this weekend. It's been organized by Catherine McKenney, Jeff Leeper, and Sean Menard, promoting the safety and unity of residents starting at 11 o'clock. A petition to have police evict the convoy has tens of thousands of signatures, while the convoy demonstrators are setting up for the long haul. Seen yesterday building a wooden structure around Confederation Park and stocking up on fuel. Chris Curries, City News.
Now, residents of both Toronto and Quebec City downtowns will be getting a taste of what people in our city have been experiencing for almost a week. Protests are scheduled for both the Ontario and Quebec provincial capitals tomorrow. Preparations at Queen's Park, for example, included beefing up security, but also maintaining that corridor in the neighbourhood for what's called Toronto's Hospital Row. The Quebec City protest is scheduled as Winter Carnival there gets underway. City News Time 9:02, and now your forecast with meteorologist or make that weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
It's a mainly cloudy day today for Ottawa and Smiths Falls, but very cold and below seasonal. Morning wind chills in those minus 20s, so make sure you're dressing for that wind chill. Daytime highs for Ottawa today near minus 13 and will fall to minus 20 overnight. It's a mainly sunny Saturday for both Smiths Falls and Ottawa. Our highs will be around minus 12. The daytime high today, minus 13.
And right now in Ottawa, minus 14 degrees. And in Smiths Falls right now, it's minus 13. Well, the Queen will mark 70 years on the throne on Sunday. That remarkably long reign has made her a symbol of stability as the UK navigates an age of uncertainty. From her early days as a glamorous young royal to her more recent incarnation as that nation's grandmother, the Queen has witnessed the end of the British Empire, the advent of multiculturalism, rise of international terrorism, and the challenges posed by things like Brexit and the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Good morning, Ottawa. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off today. I am back. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV. Back in the hot seat. Oh my goodness. Did we have fun yesterday or what? Okay, I'm a little calmer today. I'm calmer. It's a little riled up yesterday. Start the show. Let me just start the show by apologizing. Some of my language yesterday. I got a little excited. But I'm calmer. I think we need to sort of calm down, don't we? I think we need to. All right. That may not be true for some. I understand. Listen, some people are quite upset and for good reason. Let's just mention off the top of the show here, by the way, that happening now at Ottawa Police Headquarters, Chief Sloly is speaking with journalists with an update on the protest situation. Our Jason White is there reporting for City News. We're going to take you there as soon as it begins. All right, we're going to dive right in there. While we wait for the police chief, let's start by getting you up to date on what happened Thursday. Lots of news stories are emerging as we expect the protests to once again grow in size as new groups come into the city this weekend. So let's go over a few protest updates together. All right? Sit by the fire with me, will you? Sit by the fire, grab a cup of coffee, and let's go through. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says bringing in the army would be a last resort. I mean, certainly not a surprise to most, I would think. Speaking with reporters in Manitoba during a child care announcement on Thursday, the Prime Minister had this to say about the calls to bring in the armed forces to remove the protesters in Ottawa.
Would be, or you are entertaining, or could be the next Prime Minister Trudeau to deploy the military within Canada for such a demonstration?
There were questions a couple of years ago around military when it came to other protests that were blocking critical infrastructures. My answer then is consistent with my answer now, that one has to be very, very cautious before deploying military in situations engaging Canadians. It is not something that anyone should enter in lightly. But as of now, there have been no requests, and that is not in the cards right now.
All right, so there you have his response. What else is happening, Derick? What else is going on in downtown Ottawa? Well, they appear to have constructed some kind of wooden structure in Confederation Park. Yes, late yesterday afternoon, reports first hit social media of the protesters building a wooden shack. Looks like an adult lemonade stand, if you will. After some journalists went to investigate, they found a large stockpile of diesel and propane. Now, news media outlets asked the NCC, who were responsible, by the way, for that park, about the situation. The NCC then issued a statement to media saying that they had removed all the hazardous material. Okay, why wouldn't we believe you? You told us you have removed the hazardous material. Then minutes later, more photos surfaced online showing that wasn't true. The NCC, by the way, hasn't yet properly clarified why they lied about removing the fuel in the first place. So, if we hear from the NCC on that, who are very easy to deal with, we love them in the media, so we should hear from them shortly, I'm sure, we will let you know why they decided to lie about removing the fuel in the first place. Another development, the so-called Queen of Canada was on the Hill yesterday, burning a Canada flag. By the way, it is not illegal to do so. If you're wondering if it's illegal or not, it is not a crime in this country to burn the flag. Although, depending on why you're burning the flag, I'm sure a lot of people are, quite upset about the fact that this. We're not going to give her a lot of attention today, by the way, okay? You want to know more about her, you can simply look her up. We're not going to talk too much about it. Certainly want to make people aware that a group of radical QAnon conspiracy supporters did burn a Canada flag on Parliament Hill yesterday. There are videos online. The good news is some people can be heard in the video saying this is wrong, but nobody attempted to stop it. She has a large entourage with her. It's actually quite comical. I thought it was a This Hour Has 22 Minutes sketch when I first saw it. Her walking in with her entourage. Again, not going to talk any more about her. You can look her up. Other things. The Farmer Convoy 2.0 is expected to arrive this weekend. A public face group with over 3,000 members say it is planning a Farmer Convoy 2.0 leaving Alexandria early in the morning tomorrow and coming into downtown Ottawa. We're not aware of just how many vehicles will be in the convoy, but we certainly expect it to be a significant number. Yesterday, the Farmer Convoy 2.0 Mayor Jim Watson was on City News Ottawa, and he had a clear message for this particular group.
Saying to the people in Alexandria and Eastern Ontario, please do not come here. We don't need more, combines and pickup trucks and so on. You have a beef, go and see your member of parliament, but don't add to the angst that we already are facing in this community. And they're our neighbors. We love our small communities in Eastern Ontario, but now is not the time to come and side with this group of people.
All right, there you have it from Mayor Jim Watson. Also, in terms of federal leadership, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau giving no sign he's willing to negotiate with the protesters. And here's something even more interesting. Emails obtained by the Canadian press show that Candice Bergen told some senior Conservatives, I don't think we should be asking them to go home. She added, I understand the mood may shift, so we need to turn this into the PM's problem. What will he take as the first step to working towards ending this? So again, that was emails obtained by the Canadian press. It's interesting because Trudeau and Bergen spoke on the phone Thursday afternoon. The Prime Minister graciously, as he should, congratulated her on the new role. And then there is a statement from the Conservative Party, and the statement said that the two leaders agreed that solutions must be found to resolve ongoing protests in Ottawa, yet behind the scenes, Candice was sending emails saying, I don't think we should be asking them to go home, and let's make this the PM's problem. I talked about this yesterday. Why in times such as, a pandemic and a major demonstration happening in your city, can we not get political parties to work together? Maybe you don't see eye to eye. Certainly you see, Pierre Poilievre was back down there and showing his support. He didn't necessarily say his support for the protests, but he said his support for freedoms that people are speaking about and loosening restrictions completely and stopping, mandates, vaccine mandates, and so on. I don't understand. Have conversations with each other like rational people should be doing. All right. And that's what we want, to get. So, as far as the Prime Minister's comments, Candice Bergen's emails to see some senior Conservatives, that's what we want to get into with you during the Talkback Hour today. Do you think the government should engage with the protesters to try to get them out of the city? There is, of course, the refusal by the Prime Minister to negotiate at all. And I think the Prime Minister, and as far as he's concerned, he says he doesn't want to pretty much associate himself with this group because of some of the people that are involved in this protest. That's the reason behind it. However, to save the residents of downtown Ottawa, should he at least sit down with one member of this group in order to relieve the situation? I mean, I'm not sure negotiation is the word that should be used, but, perhaps he should sit down. And I don't know. I'm just thinking about those people living downtown, those people working downtown. You've got the Rideau Center that's been locked down. They've lost tens of millions of dollars now. So that's what we want to get into during the Talkback Hour. Again, do you think the government should engage with the protesters to try to get them out of the city? We're going to be speaking with a local Liberal MP, Yasir Naqvi, at 9:45. We're going to ask him about it. You can certainly, as I said, call us during the Talkback Hour. It's the Friday free-for-all. So almost anything goes, of course. So you write down the number, 613-750-1310. After the 10 o'clock news, you call David. Not before then. David gets very angry. David is having a rough week, people. I think he's into his, he's worked maybe 75 hours this week already. I could lose him at any moment during this broadcast, he may just keel over on me. So please, give the guy a break. I worry about him. I worry about his health.
I'll be okay.
You're going to be all right?
It's not that bad.
You sound choked up, David.
I'm all right.
Okay. All right. That's quite a sigh, David. All right. We're
just waiting on the police chief.
I hear you.
Friday
Is he
morning.
not ready yet?
No, he's not there. Somebody just came out and said, we apologize for the delay.
Oh.
So there's been a delay.
What's going on, Chief Sloly? You're not the prime minister. We're used to delays with the prime minister and the premier.
He's a busy guy. Maybe fresh intel's just come in.
Well, and quite frankly, that's an excellent point. He is quite a busy guy right now. I wouldn't want to be in Chief Sloly's shoes. So we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we hope to join Ottawa Police Chief Sloly live as he speaks with media at police headquarters on Elgin Street. I am Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow today. We'll be back after this right here on Rogers TV and City News.
An old-fashioned traditional grocery store. You're going to find a butcher, okay? You want a steak cut a certain way, you're going to get it. There's flour piled in the warehouse. There's mixers on the floor. There's flour on the floor. The bakery's rented out to Frank Nicolo. It's him and his son come in at night. They mix the dough, they roll the dough, and they bake the dough. It's not the traditional frozen and thaw and put it in the bin, okay? It's made from scratch 7 days a week. It's probably the only bakery left in Ottawa that does that. Then customer service. We're big on that. The cashiers, the deli. You're not. If you ask for something, they're not going to point. It's an aisle number 7. They're going to bring you there. Okay. If you have too much groceries out, we'll take it out to your car. You know what I mean? There's nothing we don't do for our customers, and we evolved around our customers. They would come in and say, can you try getting me this? Can you get me this? So that's how we built the lineup we have now. Okay, so we have a lot of unique items that someone that came over to live in Canada hasn't seen this particular product, but we sourced it and we have it for them. That like something they used to have as a kid. We have a lot of those unique items, a lot, from like all over the world, and we source it through distributors in Montreal and Toronto that bring in the product in bulk, and we piggyback off of them. Probably the largest European deli in Ottawa. We sell lots because people buy lots. Nothing really complicated about that. We turn over a lot of product. We package it properly. We buy, and we're always consistent. You're always going to find Cuddy turkey breast, Saint Daniel mortadella. You're always going to get the same brands. We don't flip back and forth to save 20 cents. It's always the same brands the last 29 years. Best sandwiches in town. It's simple. It starts off with fresh bread every day baked in the store. Anything that's left over goes to breadcrumbs. So you're getting a fresh bun every day that was baked probably 4 hours before you get here. Okay? Not only baked, made. Like, mix the flour, roll the dough, proof the bread, and bake the bread. Okay? Then all the ingredients come right off the shelves. Your lettuce, your tomatoes, all your condiments, and they're cut up fresh in the deli. Not like the big, corporate restaurant chains that your lettuce comes in shredded in a bag, you open it up and you throw it in the bin. Takes, 2 or 3 days to get here from California. How long is it in the bag? The big difference is like making a sandwich at home and you don't have to do the work. It's really what the trick is, and using the freshest ingredients possible.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob Snow today. Rob will be back on Monday. Never fear, our fearless leader will be back. We are waiting, by the way, on Police Chief Sloly. He's doing a live press conference, so just to let you know, we're gonna jump into that as soon as he arrives. We've been given the 1 minute warning, so he should be joining us in a moment. Coming up on the show, by the way, Yasir Naqvi, Liberal MP for Ottawa Centre. We're gonna chat with him, talk about certainly Justin Trudeau and sticking to what he has said all along, that he's not willing to sit down with the protesters. He's not willing to negotiate with them. We'll get his thoughts on that. Tim Tierney, City Councillor for Beacon Hill-Cyrville, joining us on the show. We'll get his response and his reaction from the demonstrations that are going on, what he's hearing from residents of Ottawa living in the area. And, a little lighter side. We got to have it's Friday. Got to go a little lighter side. And we're going to talk some sports. Steve Warne, veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast, will be joining us. Got a few things to talk about. Of course, the Sens are on a bit of a break here, but this is the halfway mark, right? We're going into All-Star weekend. It's the halfway mark. Sens certainly have had their struggles with both COVID, and then you have injuries. Their top three centers have been out for extended periods of time. It's given other players an opportunity. Players like Tim Stützle, who, of course, has been moved over to play center, and he's shown an incredible amount of maturity, playing an excellent two-way game. So we'll get Steve's thoughts on that. Of course, Drake Batherson, who is injured long-term, was supposed to be going to the All-Star game. What an absolute shame on a horrible check. By a goaltender. I won't even mention his name. Anymore. He's not even in the NHL. He got waived.
What happened with that? Was there a suspension involved?
There's a 3-game suspension.
That was it, eh?
That's it. And Batherson's probably out for the rest of the season.
High ankle sprain too.
Yeah,
that's
and those are
bad one.
That's actually worse than say a knee injury, which many people thought was going to be the situation. A break would have been a better situation.
Yeah, I've heard that it's worse to have high ankle sprain than an actual broken ankle.
Yeah.
When you're an athlete,
absolutely, it takes much longer. But there's some positive. Eric Brandstrom, has been playing fantastic hockey, given the opportunity. He was out with COVID, unfortunately, and then he had the hand injury. And Matt Murray, my goodness, he's been on a run. Is this the Matt? Are we finally getting the Matt Murray that we expected when we signed this guy to 4 years at $6.25 million?
At long last.
Oh, my
starting
goodness.
To earn his $100,000 a game yet, or what?
No kidding. And then, of course, the Canadian men's Olympic hockey team. We'll talk a little bit about that. It's an interesting roster. Eric Stahl, 37-year-old Eric Stahl, back to represent Canada for the first time since 2010.
Blast from the past.
Yeah.
Eric Stahl.
Yeah.
That's like my vintage. When I was a little guy watching hockey, that he would have been one of the guys.
Exactly.
So, the resurrection of that career, I guess.
And, team captain.
Yeah.
And deservedly so. He's going to be great because, and it's quite a contrast. You have the 37-year-old Eric Stahl, and then you've got 19-year-old Mason McTavish and 19-year-old Owen Power. So, and I think it's going to be great for those kids. It's going to be great to have somebody with his experience. And then we'll ask Steve about some of the biggest questions for the second half. And, of course, we also have our Queen's Park in Review coming up. We always end our Friday with our Queen's Park in Review. Certainly going to get reaction from the events in Ottawa this week. We'll get a response, the response from the Ford government. We'll talk about, any value in recalling the legislature early. And lots to talk about.
Gas prices, too.
Oh,
you see the
my
price
goodness.
of gas around the corner this morning?
It's crazy.
Did you notice that on the way in?
I did.
I noticed that on the way in.
I drove right by it because I stopped at the Timmins.
And what was it?
150, what was it, 154?
154.9. Almost $1.55.
What are we going to
Never
do?
seen a number like that on a pump.
Between inflation, gas prices, grocery prices going up, it's just more and more difficult for people to make ends meet.
That's something interesting that I was reading in the news this morning. One of the issues with inflation is when the longer it goes on, it changes what the economists call the expectation for workers in terms of especially collective agreements.
Right. Oh, yeah,
right?
of
Because
course.
you and I, we're not unionized, so we just go ad hoc. We negotiate directly with our employers.
Yeah.
But if you have a collective agreement, usually they're 4 or 5 years. So the unionized employees at the national grocery store chain Sobeys have just negotiated a deal that's 19% salary increase over 4 years. So it's about
19%.
It's about 4.8% per year. So
Good
this is
for
one
them.
of those early signs that the economists have been warning us about, that if the central bank doesn't raise rates quick enough, you're going to start seeing the expectation for 5% consumer inflation baked into these long-term contracts. And if you work at Sobeys, great, good for you, private sector. But when we're talking about, public employees, well, that's a huge drain on tax resources at the moment.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, I don't know if everyone realizes this, but we're in debt a little bit right now.
We have some issues with the balance sheet.
There's a slight issue with the balance sheet. Yeah, absolutely. So, just a reminder, everybody, we are waiting for Chief Sloly. We got the 1 minute warning.
That was like 6 minutes ago.
Yeah, about 6 minutes ago. So they have put out a press release, by the way. Ottawa Police Service put out a press release. The headline, Ottawa Police Service implements increased measures to protect downtown neighborhoods. So, he's taking the podium now. So let's go to Police Chief Sloly here.
From the police to be announced this morning. Let's listen in.
I want to thank everybody for coming this morning. Ottawa residents are frustrated and they are angry, and they have every right to be. Their lives continue to be severely impacted by unlawful and unsafe events on the city streets, in the downtown core, and in the surrounding neighborhoods. This is unacceptable. This morning, we have begun implementing a new surge and contain strategy in our downtown core, based on lessons learned over the last operating cycle of the demonstrations and new intelligence gathered literally in the last 24 hours. There are 3 parts to this new strategy. Number 1, we're deploying a surge of police officers in the downtown and the immediate neighborhoods. There will be approximately 150 additional officers dedicated to only patrolling and addressing unlawful, threatening conduct in the most impacted neighborhoods, specifically Centertown, Lower Town, and the Byward Market. This surge will include working with our city and NCR official partners to prevent unlawful and unsafe use of public spaces by demonstrators. These officers and our partners will be focused on illegal activity associated with the demonstrators. The surge will deliver a clear message to the demonstrators: the lawlessness must end. The focus of these officers will be on acts of mischief, hate, harassment, intimidation, and other threatening behaviors. Second part of the strategy will be an expansion of the hardening of the perimeter in the demonstration red zone, the immediate area of Wellington Street in front of the Parliament buildings. We will be further isolating and containing the demonstration in that red zone. The Ottawa Police Service, the City of Ottawa, and our partners will be utilizing concrete barriers, heavy equipment barricades to create no-access roadways throughout the downtown core. This includes considerations around the closing of bridges, highway off-ramps, and other roadways. Incoming protester vehicles today and throughout the weekend will be directed to designated parking zones outside of the downtown core. Illegal parking by demonstrators will result in bylaw enforcement, removal, and impound if necessary. Again, interprovincial bridges, highway off-ramps, and roads will be closed as needed as we manage and monitor the influx of vehicles and the egress of vehicles from the core. The third part of the strategy, enhanced intelligence and investigation operations. We now have secured fully national, provincial, and local intelligence agencies. We have increased ability to identify and target protesters and supporters of protesters who are funding and enabling unlawful and harmful activity by the protesters themselves. Investigative evidence gathering teams are collecting financial, digital, vehicle registration, driver identification, insurance status, and other related evidence that will be used in prosecutions. Every unlawful act, including traffic and insurance violations, will be fully pursued, regardless of the origin, at any time in the future. The primary focus of each of these measures will be on the unlawful behavior connected to the ongoing demonstrations. This includes parallel and counter demonstrations. We strongly urge all demonstrators and those engaging with the demonstrators to act lawfully, peacefully, and respectfully. The hatred, the violence, the illegal acts that Ottawa residences and businesses have endured over the last week is unacceptable in any circumstance. The Ottawa Police Service and the City of Ottawa are bringing significantly greater resources to restore order, hold offenders to account, and protect our neighborhoods. The current demonstration in the Parliamentary Precinct Red Zone remains unresolved despite significant successes in reducing the number of trucks and demonstrators while preventing riots, injuries, or deaths. We take no solace in these operational successes to date. Our goal is to end the demonstration. The demonstrators in the Red Zone area remain highly organized, well-funded, extremely committed to resisting all attempts to end the demonstration safely. This remains, as it was from the beginning, an increasingly volatile and increasingly dangerous demonstration. The Ottawa Police Service continues to work with the national security agencies, the RCMP, the OPP, and other municipal police agencies. Over the last 48 hours, we've also been able to engage all three levels of government to effect a safe, timely, and lawful end to this unlawful and unacceptably dangerous demonstration. Public safety remains paramount, as does our commitment to work with all levels of government and all parts of civil society to bring this demonstration to an end. In closing, I want to reiterate what Ottawa residents have endured, what Ottawa businesses have endured, what our own service members and our partners have endured over the last week is unacceptable. And we have learned from our experience. We have gathered new evidence. We have secured new allies, and we're implementing new measures to bring this demonstration to an end. Thank you very much. I'd be pleased to take any questions you may have at this time.
Good morning, Chief. Marika Walsh with the Globe and Mail. I'd like to go broad first and talk about...
Just a reminder, everybody, that was Chief Sloly speaking about what their plans are, increased measures to protect downtown neighborhoods, and now Chief Sloly is taking questions from the media.
Tanks stockpiled near the canal, whereas the police in the past and enforcement in the past has meant that things like a lemonade stand couldn't continue. So how do you speak to residents? How do you explain and how do you ensure that trust is rebuilt now when they think that you have abandoned them?
Thank you very much for your question. And again, I take great empathy with those that have endured unacceptable violations of their ability to live and raise their families and conduct their businesses in this city, in their neighborhoods, particularly during this time, almost 2 full years into a global pandemic, with everything that everybody has suffered and endured. I have met with those business owners, I have met with the residents, I've patrolled in these streets, and I can see plainly and understand clearly the depth of frustration that they have in the police service and in society as a whole to what they find here happening today. We are doing everything we possibly can to keep them safe. We are doing more and more each day as we learn and understand the nature of this demonstration, how it is supported, funded, sustained, and committed to continuing on despite best efforts by policing partners here and across the country. We're absolutely committed to bringing this demonstration to an end. We have implemented major new efforts, 150 new officers based on the intelligence will be applied in those 3 neighborhoods most impacted, where that trust has been most impacted. 24 hours a day over the next 4 days coming through this weekend, those officers will be focused on enforcement, bringing to order and bringing to justice those who've committed disorder and unlawful acts, to support those residents and support those businesses and rebuild that shaken trust. But it will take more than the efforts of our officers to bring this demonstration to an end. And we have gathered allies and supports from all three levels of policing and public safety and all three levels of government. We are implementing new measures, and we are encouraged by the new measures that others in our ally group are considering and implementing right now as well.
And it's restricted to one question. Okay, thank you for now.
Chief Sloly, Stéphane Leclerc, Radio-Canada. Just wondering, does that mean, because you talk about enforcing bylaw, towing and impounding vehicles, what about the trucks on Wellington? Does that mean that you're going to start today removing trucks from that road and area?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question, sir. We have been enforcing the bylaws, the Provincial Offences Act, the Criminal Code. We've been reducing the number of trucks in the entire city of Ottawa, and particularly in the downtown core, including in the red zone of Wellington. The number of protesters have dropped off significantly. The number of trucks in the red zone and the surrounding neighborhoods have dropped off significantly. People have been arrested and charged. Offenses have been dealt with through bylaw and provincial statutes. Evidence is being gathered. Investigations are ongoing, including the criminal investigation to the desecration of the cenotaph. That has been going on since the beginning of this demonstration and will continue on. Certainly the criminal code investigations will continue on in perpetuity. There is no statute of limitations on criminal investigations until we bring those who committed those criminal acts to justice. In regards to a timeline for when we'll remove all aspects of this demonstration, including the trucks in the red zone, I do not have a timeline now, but as I've stated before, every option is on the table. Thank you for your question, sir.
Good morning, Chief. Natalie Van Roy from CTV Ottawa. Vulnerable people feel abandoned and harassed in their own city. How did you let the protesters gain so much control?
Thank you very much for your question. I've had the opportunity in my patrols over the last week to speak with some of those vulnerable people. I can tell you it's heartbreaking. In fact, as I was parked right up front of this police station on a board briefing with my board chair in regards to where we were in the early part of the week, two members who live in the YMCA just on the other side of this building came by in their wheelchairs, both of them elderly, both of them clearly struggling with a range of disabilities, doing their own shopping in sub-zero temperatures. They stopped to speak with me. They expressed their frustration and their fear. They also expressed their understanding for the incredibly difficult job that we're doing and for the work that we've done to support them thus far. I understand there is a wide range of opinions around the efficacy of our efforts to date, but we've done absolutely the best we can to keep this city safe, to keep residents like that safe, the most marginalized, often the most racialized communities as safe as we can. We need to do better. We're committed to doing better. We now have more intelligence and allies to do better, and we're implementing more and better plans. 150 officers in these neighborhoods to support people like those two people I spoke about. 150 officers 24/7 over the next 4 days. No matter how many trucks come into this town, those officers will remain dedicated to keeping those vulnerable members as safe as they can be and addressing unlawful and unacceptable behavior in their neighborhoods until the end of these demonstrations. That is my commitment here today. We will step up our intelligence and investigation efforts. We will hold to account not just the demonstrators, but those that fund and enable the demonstrators in any way. And we will have a hardened plan for the weekend's demonstrations, including concrete barriers, expanding that red zone, and locking down bridges, highways, and major thoroughfares to reduce the ability of vehicles and trucks to come in, and when they come in, to target them, ticket them, and remove them as best we can. Thank you very much for your question.
Chief Mackenzie Gray with CTV National News. You've spoken previously about how you think some of the protesters have guns. Is the Ottawa Police not willing to move into the protesters because you think if you do, things will turn violent?
Thank you very much for your question. To be clear, we have already made arrests involving individuals who were intending to and were bringing firearms to the nation's capital to be involved directly or indirectly in the protests. Through our partners across the country, we were able to identify one individual and interdict him before he was able to get close to the city. A firearm was seized, charges were laid, and he will face full prosecution, including potential jail time. That remains for anybody in this city or in this country or in any other country that intends to bring a firearm to a lawful protest, to engage in unlawful activity in any way. Do not bring weapons. Do not bring firearms. Do not come here to cause harm. Do not come here to break the law. You will be held to account.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Hi, Craig Lord from Global News. Can you clarify then, do you currently have intelligence that there are restricted firearms planned to be in the city this weekend when the protesters come?
I'm going to invite Deputy Chief Bell to provide that intelligence update for you.
Thank you very much for the question. In terms of intelligence that we have for this weekend, we are receiving information, have been tracking and working with our partners. We're anticipating between 300 to 400 trucks attempting to enter to engage in the demonstration this weekend. We also have information that indicates that there will be between 1,000 and 2,000 foot participants who will join the area of the demonstration, as well as up to 1,000 counter-protesters who have indicated a desire to come down to the area. In terms of specific intelligence that we have relating to weapons and firearms, we continue to update the city in terms of public safety advisories and conduct investigations in any sort of weapons or threat-related information that we receive. Thanks for the question.
And the last question.
Hi, Chief. It's Joanne Canello from CBC News. Chief, I'm sure a lot of people are very happy to hear there are efforts being made to stop trucks coming into the core. People have asked why that didn't happen last weekend. You've told us that was impossible, both through the charter and logistically. What's changed?
Joanne, thank you very much for the question. We cannot block off the entire city. We cannot stop anybody that wants to bring a vehicle or a conveyance into the city or walk into the city. This is the nation's capital, it's a democratic society, and we have a Charter of Rights, all of which you've stated. We did block roads, we did reduce access, we did create zones where people could park vehicles outside of the core. But the number of people, the number of vehicles, and the number of access and egress points in the city, this is the largest geographic city in the country, the second largest geographic city in North America. There is no way a police service of our size or any size could block off the entire city and stop that, even if it was legal. We're taking more steps this week. Thank you very much. We're taking more steps this week. I'm going to invite Deputy Chief Trish Ferguson to speak about the traffic plan and the hardening of the downtown core. There will be more closures. It will create more problems and traffic chaos for healthcare workers, emergency service providers, city workers, business owners, and people that want to transverse through the city. There will be a price to pay for higher security footprint. That is what we're trying to balance on a constant basis. I'll invite Deputy Chief Ferguson to add her comments.
Before you go, I just want to say, I didn't ask about the whole city. Of course, you can't bring every part in, but how come they weren't stopped, trucks from coming into the core where they are now and getting hard and being difficult to remove them now?
Good morning. Bon matin à tous et à toutes. Thank you. I'll begin comments in French and then we'll switch to English. En fin de semaine dernière.
Last weekend. All right. You've just been listening to the Chief of Police, Chief Sloly, implementing increased measures to protect downtown neighborhoods. A lot coming out of that. They're doing a major deployment of police officers in the downtown. Just to review a few things, there are going to be approximately 150 additional uniformed and non-uniformed officers dedicated to patrolling and addressing unlawful and threatening conduct in the most impacted neighborhoods. So that's Centertown, Sandy Hill, Lower Town, and the Byward Market. They're going to expand and harden the perimeter of what they're calling the demonstration red zone. So the Ottawa Police Service and City of Ottawa are going to be utilizing concrete and heavy equipment barricades to create no-access roadways throughout the downtown core. The City of Ottawa is going to be releasing a map of the impacted roads later today. So you can check out the City of Ottawa, probably all of their social media and at ottawa.ca. And protesters' vehicles will be directed to designated parking zones outside of the downtown core. And I'm sorry, I know this isn't a laughing matter, but I laugh because it almost seems inviting to a certain extent. Here's some free parking. You know what? We should put up a booth though and at least charge, right? I mean, we've lost a lot of revenue here, a lot of city revenue throughout the pandemic, throughout this lockdown. I don't know. I'm suggesting, maybe the size of vehicle. You got a big rig, $50. You're coming in your SUV, your flatbed, $40. You're in a 4-door sedan, $25, something like that. Also, enforcement directives. A surge of police officers will result in enforcement to restore what they say public safety, which includes increased investigation, enforcement, and charges for all criminal acts related to hate, harassment, assaults, including spitting, intimidation, and mischief. And then enhanced intelligence operations and investigation. So national, provincial, and local intelligence agencies have increased efforts to identify and target protesters who are funding, supporting, enabling unlawful and harmful activity by protesters. So the investigative evidence gathering teams, they're collecting financial, digital, vehicle registration, driver identification, insurance status, and other related evidence that will be used in criminal prosecutions. So that's sort of the wrap up of that press conference. We're going to continue to get reaction. Certainly getting reaction as well from the federal government. And what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has continued to say, that he's not willing to negotiate. He's not willing to sit down with any of the organizers. So coming up after the break is Liberal MP for Ottawa Centre, Yasir Naqvi. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob Snow, right here on Rogers TV and City News.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Centre. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people I think know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time, they make an appointment, they stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's Corn Flakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
Strong voice.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Deploying a surge of police officers in the downtown and the immediate neighborhoods. There will be approximately 150 additional officers dedicated to only patrolling and addressing unlawful, threatening conduct in the most impacted neighborhoods, specifically Centertown, Lower Town, and the Byward Market.
That is, of course, Ottawa Police Chief Sloly talking about Ottawa's implementation, the Ottawa Police Service's implementation of increased measures to protect downtown neighborhoods. Wanted to get some reaction. So we are joined by Liberal MP for Ottawa Centre, Yasir Naqvi. Yasir, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Thank you. Good morning, Derick.
Good morning. Well, it's been quite a week since you were on the show last Friday. Let's start with your reaction to the developments with the protests, which many now are calling an occupation.
Well, Derick, I can tell you from the accounts of misery that my constituents, the residents of downtown Ottawa, are going through, that this is not a peaceful protest, nor it is lawful. This protest has robbed the peace of residents in the downtown core over the last 7 days with the incessant honking and noise and intimidation and yelling. People have not been able to sleep. People are not feeling well. They've been inhaling diesel fumes because the trucks have been running all night. And so this protest needs to come to an end. We, of course, live in a democracy, Derick, and we recognize peaceful protests and we celebrate them, in fact, because that is our right. But that does not take away anybody else's right to live peacefully, and that's what has happened here. And I'm a respectful person, and I respectfully say to the protesters, you made your point. It's time to leave now. In fact, the longer you stay, you're losing your point because people who live in this city, even they may have supported you, I don't think support you anymore.
Yeah, sir. So, what are your thoughts on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's unwillingness to speak or negotiate? I think negotiate's too strong of a word because I don't think he's going to negotiate. But what about his unwillingness to speak to any of these organizers?
Well, the Prime Minister, of course, is hearing this protest, and as many other protests that take place across the country. But, I don't think the Prime Minister of Canada is going to meet with a group of protesters that have walked around with swastikas and Confederate flags in our nation's capital.
Yeah, I think it's the association, right? Yeah, sir. No, I just want to stop you for a moment because we've had a lot of calls on this show throughout the entire week. We're going back to Saturday when we had full coverage and saying, okay, we understand that there are some factions that have tried to take over with their hate messages and their racism and this disgusting symbolism. But the 90% of us, this is what they're saying, but the 90% of us are peaceful people. We're doing a peaceful protest here. This is their words. And we don't condone the use of the swastika, the Confederate flag, the desecration of the tomb of the unknown soldier in the war memorial. What do you say to those people that are saying, listen, we're here doing this peacefully. We're trying to have a conversation with the government?
Well, I will respectfully say to that this protest is no longer peaceful. When you occupy a core part of a city and cause harassment and intimidation to people and businesses who live and operate in that city, in my view, that is not peaceful. We need. Let's go to the core of the issue here, Derick. And the core of the issue here is that we are living through a global pandemic.
Yeah.
We all. Yeah. We keep. It's like we've forgotten the pandemic. This is a global pandemic which has taken lives of our loved ones. It still continues to wreak havoc. So our number one job of any government, and all three orders of government are working together on this, is to find a way to put an end to the pandemic so we can all, continue to live our lives that we've always lived.
Yeah, I think people are concerned. Well, are we ever going to get to that point? I mean, that's one thing, right? Okay, let's move to another subject. What messages do you have for the businesses that have closed because of the disruption downtown? And that my follow-up question is any federal help coming for them?
Yeah, so first of all, my heart goes out to all these businesses because, as you know, they have suffered already so much because of this pandemic and all the different lockdowns they had to go through. And last Monday, when opening started, a lot of the businesses in the downtown core have not been able to open. I've been speaking to some businesses. I've been speaking to my colleagues as well, like Mona Fortier, who's a member of Parliament for Ottawa and the president of the Treasury Board, and looking at ways as to how we can help these businesses. I'm advocating for that, and I'm getting very positive reception in that regard. So stay tuned. But we're working very hard to find ways to support our businesses who have now hit in more ways than before.
You heard. I'm sure you heard the press conference there with Chief Sloly. Are you satisfied with the response you've seen by law enforcement in our city so far, and are you satisfied with the plans moving forward from now until, of course, this demonstration is over?
Yeah, police have a very difficult job to do, and I know Peter Sloly, our chief, has the best interest of the city at hand. I'm going to refrain from being the armchair quarterback because I'm not in his shoes. What I can relate to you is that the residents are not satisfied with the level of enforcement they would expect in such a situation that they have not seen. I am encouraged to see some really important enforcement measures announced by the chief this morning, and I hope that they're followed through and that this protest is contained over this weekend, and there is no repeat of the kind of incidences we saw last weekend as a result of this protest.
Final question here before we go to the news. There's some leaked emails from interim leader Candace Bergen, wondering what your response is. She has told some senior conservatives in an email, I don't think we should be asking them to go home, and followed that up with, I understand the mood may shift soon, so we need to turn this into the Prime Minister's problem. What's your response to those leaked emails?
I am very disappointed at the Conservative Party of Canada and the members of Parliament who represent Conservative Party. Many of them have been cheering these protesters, have been going outside, taking photos with them like this is some sort of a festival. Derick, I have been standing up in the House, speaking on a regular basis. And one of the things that I'm doing is reading emails that I am receiving from constituents directly so that members opposite could hear what the residents in this community are going through. So when I hear that there are emails where we're saying somebody's trying to turn this protest into a political maneuver and that we should let these people stay so that we can have a political upper hand, it's a huge insult to the community and the suffering that people are going through, the mental health challenges that people are seeing, which is getting exacerbated on top of the pandemic to begin with. Our school, one of our schools was closed down initially because there were security concerns.
Right.
To me, that's not acceptable, and I'm going to raise the point in the House again.
Yeah, sir, appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. That's Liberal MP for Ottawa Centre, Yasir Naqvi. Coming up after the break, it's your hour. It is the Talkback Hour, and you know what that means on a Friday. It's the Friday free-for-all. We've got a couple of questions for you, but you can talk about whatever you want. Well, maybe not everything. 613-750-1310 is our number. Please give us a call. I'm Derick Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in for Rob Snow right here on The Rob Snow Show. We'll be back with more right here on City News.
is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 4th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa -14 and Smiths Falls -13. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa police are deploying a surge of about 150 extra police officers 24 hours a day starting this weekend in areas of the city most affected by the protest against COVID-19 mandates. Chief Peter Sloly says patrolling officers will be focused on dealing with mischief, hate, harassment, threats, and other intimidating behavior. The federal public safety minister, Marco Mendicino, says the RCMP has approved the request for more Mounties to come in and support city police. Now, Chief Sloly of the Ottawa force says this is going to cause even more traffic problems this weekend with these additional officers. That means more streets will be blocked off this weekend with a surge in policing and expecting the oncoming number of additional protesters. He said that is also going to impact those who have to go to work, including those in healthcare. When asked about a specific of a stockpile of propane and fuel the protesters have, this was the chief's answer.
This is an unprecedented and unique set of circumstances. The level of organization, funding, commitment, communication. We have found at least 2 operation centers right here in the city. There are multiple operation centers across the country and internationally. Funding is coming in locally, nationally, and internationally. Supports including legal advice, logistics support, and yes, fuel support are coming in from all sectors and all sides.
Now, the chief says he and other city officials have received death threats as well over the past 48 hours. He also says every day he and the force do strive to do better. Now, Ottawa's mayor reaffirmed his support for the work Ottawa police have been doing this past week.
I have complete confidence in the chief and the police officers who were put in a very untenable situation. They have been enforcing laws.
Jim Watson telling City News new resources are in place today and police are tasked with de-escalation, not escalation. City News time 10:03. And now your forecast with weather specialist Denise Andriachi.
It's a mainly cloudy day today for Ottawa and Smiths Falls, but very cold and below seasonal. Morning wind chills in those -20s, so make sure you're dressing for that wind chill. Daytime highs for Ottawa today near -13 and will fall to -20 overnight. It's a mainly sunny Saturday for both Smiths Falls and Ottawa. Our highs will be around -12. The daytime high today, -13.
And right now it's -14 degrees in Ottawa, -13 in Smiths Falls. Unemployment rate in both Ottawa and Gatineau did climb in January, likely due to the Omicron variant and the more COVID measures that were introduced in the province. Ottawa went from 4.4 to 4.7 December to January. Gatineau from 4.4 to 5 even. StatsCan says overall across Canada, the economy lost 200,000 jobs in January.
Last month's decrease marks the largest drop since January 2021, when the economy shed 207,800 jobs. The loss also pushed the unemployment rate to 6.5% last month, compared to 6% in December. Statistics Canada says the bulk of the job losses were in Ontario and Quebec, which implemented among the strictest COVID-19 public health measures in the country. Food services and accommodations were among the hardest hit, with young people and women most affected. Emily Javeski, The Canadian Press.
City News time 10:05, and every nation was led into the stadium in Beijing, China by someone carrying a glowing snowflake as the Olympic opening ceremonies were held. Each of the snowflakes then put together to form a larger one. The placard bearers' costumes also have an ice and snow pattern. Their hats have a tiger motif representing the year of the tiger in the Chinese zodiac. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off today. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV. Filling in for Rob, it is the Talkback Hour. Oh my goodness. You know what that means though on a Friday? That means it's the Friday free-for-all. Anything goes. Or as Rob likes to say, almost anything goes. We want to hear from you. I know that, most people are going to obviously be calling in. I see our lines are lit up already. People calling in with reactions about the protests. I'll just throw a couple of things out here, and then we'll go straight to the phone call. So reminder, 613-750-1310. A couple of questions I'll throw out there for you. Do you think the Trudeau government should engage with the protesters? A big one. Many people have been talking about that. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau certainly giving no signs he's willing to negotiate with the protesters occupying Ottawa. Conservative interim leader Candice Bergen saying that pleading, can the Prime Minister please tell Canadians what role he thinks the government can play and what they can do to solve the impasse? So again, the question: do you think the Trudeau government should engage with the protesters? And, what are your thoughts on the Ottawa Police Service's implementation of increased measures to protect downtown neighborhoods? And I can review some of that a little bit later on during the Talkback Hour. And maybe something fun. I don't know. Are you following the Olympics? Do you care about the Olympics? The opening ceremonies, you just heard from Andrew. Opening ceremonies happen. So those are three questions for you. But I'm sure you have some of your own things you want to discuss today. So let's head over to the phones right away. Mike from Ottawa wants to discuss the protests. Mike, good morning. Thanks for joining us here. What are your thoughts on the protests, Mike?
Good morning. My thoughts basically are I'm appalled the fact that there's locals here and politicians that are calling to potentially send the army to break this protest up. I just feel like the last 2 years, I think Canada has drifted dangerously closer and closer to a authoritarian type country, kind of like China. And I think if we send the army there, even if it's a small chance, I think it doesn't really separate us from a China.
Well, Mike, I just to counter that, from the response from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau about sending in the army, it sounded like that it was very, very unlikely. Certainly an absolute last resort. This is just my personal opinion, Mike. I didn't see it as, it was even being thought of at this very moment.
I sure hope so, because I personally believe that COVID has become political. It's no longer about the actual science. I just don't understand, just at this current stage, the need for a vaccine passport, firing the nurses, suspending workers without pay for not taking the vaccine, which is proven now to not fully stop the spread. I just don't understand that. And for me personally, God bless the truckers. I think they're heroes. And
okay.
And I hope, and I think Justin Trudeau needs to be a real leader and speak to these people, because they are his constituents. There's a lot of people that support the truckers.
Yeah.
And I think it's just for the greater good of Canada as a whole to return to normal. And lastly, I do feel sorry for the locals downtown Ottawa that are living through the noise and the the actual disruption. But this is much, much bigger than Ottawa. This is much, much bigger than Chief Sloly.
Oh, I agree, Mike. I agree, but I am not sure, that they should have to suffer through all of this. And I don't know what I don't know what the protesters could have done differently, from their perspective of trying to make a point and, raising awareness to their concerns about, vaccine mandates and certificates and passports and lockdowns. I think we can all relate to a lot of the things they're saying. I will go back to Justin Trudeau just for a moment, Mike, and say I think his issue is he does not want to associate with a group that has some factions such as, far right ideology with some of the leadership there, and I don't think anyone can deny that. And so I think the protesters also, Mike, have made some significant mistakes. If you want to be taken seriously and if you want the ear of politicians, then you have to make sure that those factions are not a part of your leadership group, and that when you see things like swastikas and the F. Trudeau flags, which is, in my opinion, immature, you tell them they're not welcome.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just my thoughts, Mike.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, but the fact is that there's I think there is a silent majority that support these truckers, and Trudeau, even though some of these characters are shady, he needs to address the problem. This is bigger than a few bad apples.
And I think his lack of leadership goes back to far, far, far before this. He pitted the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated from the beginning. Mike, really appreciate the call. Thank you very much. Let's head over to Eric in Orleans. Eric, what are your thoughts on? I'm good, Eric. How are you?
My thoughts are these municipal guys here, councillors, mayors, have to stop calling them yahoos. They have to stop, saying that that everybody's not sleeping. They have to stop telling the truckers that they're doing exactly what they came here to do.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
They're giving the ammunition to the truckers to dig in their heels, because they didn't come here for a cup of tea and a couple of sugar cookies to talk about things. They came here to make a difference. And I am done with all these mandates. I'm double vaccinated. I work 70 hours a week. I want to take my kids on a trip to Mexico.
I hear you.
I stay there. I got a test there not to bring Omicron back to a country that's got Omicron. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I get what you're saying, Eric. I get what you're saying. Listen, I want to go on vacation too. I absolutely want to go back to normal. I want to go to the curling club and not wear a mask when I'm sweeping my butt off down the ring. I agree. The lockdowns have hurt a great number of people. Eric, thanks so much for the call. Our lines are lighting up, so I'm just going to try to get through so many calls here because I know we're going to get a ton. 613-750-1310 is the number. By the way, Derick Fage here filling in for Rob Snow. Rob off today. Let's head over to Thomas from Bell's Corners who wants to talk about the protest. Thomas, what are your thoughts?
How are you doing today, Derick?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good, thanks.
Good.
I have a big concern just about Trudeau's stance on this.
Okay.
I, like many Canadians, watched as that convoy headed from east to west.
Yeah.
And I saw the thousands of people that were supporting on the overpasses, supporting these truckers.
Yeah.
And Trudeau made his decision not to meet with them before they even arrived in this city.
I agree, Thomas. But is it is it the right decision? It might be, as far as he's concerned.
Hang on.
Yeah, go ahead.
So he makes the decision, as thousands of Canadians are supporting these convoys that are headed our way.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get here. So he's already made the decision to say, no, I'm not going to meet with them.
Right.
This is before the swastikas. This is before the rebel flags. This is before any of these smaller groups infiltrated. Okay.
Yeah.
He made the decision.
He did.
What we all saw, all these Canadians rallying around these Canadian truckers coming to Ottawa, no matter what their stance is. I'm triple vax. My family is.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I question the Prime Minister because he has a history of dealing with known terrorists. And I look to Omar Khadr, who got $10.5 million from this Prime Minister and his government, a convicted terrorist.
Okay, Thomas, that's completely. Let me just stop you for just a second there and just say, okay, you have to also understand the resources available to the Prime Minister of Canada. And he made that decision before they arrived here. And you know what? I'm just guessing here, Thomas. I'm not saying that this is 100% true, but I can see it being quite clear to the Prime Minister. He has the resources available to him to do research on who is leading, who are some of the leaders, who are some of the organizers of this protest. And if you look into some of the organizers and some of the leaders of this protest, Thomas, there's some very concerning history behind them.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
That's the reason he decided before they arrived, I think.
Well, that didn't stop him, though, from dealing with a terrorist who was convicted in a U.S. court. That didn't stop him. So he was the one who told all Canadians, a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I think his leadership has been terrible, Thomas. I don't
matter what is in the group, the sad part is he should be talking to them at least to say, here's our stance as a government. And I
don't think he needs to talk to the organizers, Thomas. I think he needs to talk to the people in general that are supporting this protest. That's what I think. Though, if he's worried about the association, those are the people he should be talking to. Thomas, I got to let you go because our lines are lighting up, and I've got to go to a quick break here. Again, our number 613-750-1310. Derick Fage here, filling in on the Rob Snow Show right here on Rogers TV and City News.
I started, as I said, at Lester's Barber Shop, and it was kind of, it was one of those things that it was just an opportune time for me to get into it, just because he had decided that he was going to retire after the fire, and then the opportunity presented itself that I could open my own shop. And so I went from 150 square foot space on St. Patrick Street to a 600 square foot space just on Beechwood to now here, and I'm in a 1,400 square foot space now. And I don't know, it's been an interesting journey because, you know, you think that you're just going to be just you or a really small space, and then all of a sudden, you know, you've got 10 other people working for you, you're in a much bigger space, and even incorporating the boutique. Well, last March when all of this started, I mean, we closed down a little bit earlier than everybody else, and I'm going to say, you know, being honest, part of it was social pressure. We shut down before everybody else did, and I'm watching all these other salons, you know, just be really responsible and say we don't want to be a part of the process. So we got ahead of it and closed, and then, you know, the week later the government's like, everybody's shutting down. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. I guess the first step of us, you know, trying to innovate and just keep moving forward was when the salon is closed, right? It's like, what do you do? Our whole industry is based on being with people, cutting their hair, providing a service. You have to be people together to do that. You can't do that remotely at all. So one of the first things that I saw in our industry, what people were trying to do is they were selling their hair products that they had. And luckily, I've had a website that always had a web store in the back. I just never used it. So as soon as I saw that people were doing that, I was like, okay, if this is what we're going to do, I'm going to load up all my stuff. And so that worked out really, really well. And then from there, I managed to find a place that was like a wholesale website that allowed you to have net 60 days. So you don't have to, you can order all the stuff. You don't have to prepay any of it. There's free returns, all that. So that made it really easy for me to bring in other products and start trying to sell it. And so I went from selling hair products to shave products to bath and body products to a little bit of clothing and jewelry, and now it's just morphed into this whole, like, I want to make it a whole legit boutique. And by December of last year, I decided that this is a full-fledged thing and we're going to separate it. It's its own company. So it's really finding an opportunity that's there and running with it. So it's been really fun. Our clients are loving it. Our clients that have been here for a long time, they love it.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob is off today. Derick Fage here from Rogers TV filling in for Rob, and it is the Talkback Hour. Our favorite hour of the show. No, we love all 3 hours, but this is a great part of the show because this is your hour where you get to voice your opinion. 613-750-1310. Of course, the majority of people wanting to talk about the protest. We welcome all opinions on the show. All opinions. Do you think the Trudeau government should engage with protesters? That's one question we're throwing out there. I hope you had an opportunity to listen to Chief Sloly. We had it right here live on City News. Wondering, what are your thoughts on the Ottawa Police Service's implementation of increased measures to protect, downtown neighborhoods? He went over a number of different things. There are going to be approximately 150 additional uniformed and non-uniformed officers patrolling, and certainly patrolling, addressing unlawful and threatening conduct in the most impacted neighborhoods. So that would be Centertown, Sandy Hill, Lowertown, Byward Market. They're going to expand what they're calling and harden the perimeter of the demonstration red zone. They're going to be utilizing concrete and heavy equipment barricades to create no access roadways throughout the downtown core. And the City of Ottawa, by the way, is going to release a map of those impacted roads. Protester vehicles are going to be directed to designated parking zones outside of the downtown core, and they will have to make their way down. So those are some of the new implementations. So if you'd like to discuss that, please give us a call, 613-750-1310. Lines are lighting up. So let's go to Mark in Ottawa South. Mark, what are your thoughts here?
Well, thank you, Derick.
You're welcome.
What's prompted my call is a remark you made in the first 15 minutes of the show, which I wish more people in the media would talk that way. You referred to that woman who's prominent in the protest as a conspiracy supporter.
Right.
As opposed to a conspiracy theorist. Because that word theorist, I believe, has been severely degraded by the mainstream media by being applied to anyone who alleges a conspiracy.
Right.
A conspiracy alleger, accuser, presumer is not a theorist. A theory is an educated guess.
Right.
You're trying to explain something. Mm-hmm. There's not enough information to state conclusively what it is, so you're forced to speculate. But you do so within the parameters of the existing evidence and what can reasonably be extracted from that evidence. How many of these conspiracy allegers actually engage in this kind of intellectual exercise?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Mark.
On one of his Tuesday morning appearances last year, Professor Ian Lee stated a theory about Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
And he said he didn't know, and he didn't state it as fact. He was theorizing, speculating. He thought that Justin Trudeau might secretly be a billionaire. And he explained the reasons why the relative success of his grandfather's company and businesses.
Yeah.
You see, that's a theory.
Interesting.
He was speculating within the parameters of existing evidence.
Right.
The problem is, you see, that a person who says about Trudeau that he's trying to bring about a world government in league with George Soros, that character will be called a theorist, just like Professor Lee will be. And, I mean, Marshall McLuhan was a theorist.
Mm-hmm.
Albert Einstein was a theorist.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going here, Mark.
To be because...
Yeah. So, Mark, I have a question for you, though. You know, with regards to this protest, do you think Prime Minister Justin Trudeau should engage with the protesters, with the organizers? Should he show at least some signs that he's willing to sit down with them?
Well, the problem is, you see, that a majority of Canadians do not agree with their demands. Mm-hmm. They do recognize and support the need for some restrictions. And so he can sit down with them, but if they're not going to give up until he capitulates to them, it really won't accomplish anything.
Yeah, agreed.
And again,
I shouldn't say. I'm going to take that back. I wouldn't say it's not going to accomplish anything at all. I think it would accomplish at least something. But I agree. He's certainly.
I mean, yes, he will.
It's at least a show of good faith.
But they're not going to back off and go home.
Yeah, agreed, Mark. Mark, my lines are lighting up here, so I'm going to get to another call. Always appreciate you calling in, Mark. Let's head over to Paul from the Byward Market. Paul, you're right in the middle of it here.
Thanks, Derick. Yes, I am. And I have two comments.
Okay.
Only because I've been stuck in the midst of it all.
Yeah.
What I have to say about the truckers is that they're a bunch of wusses hiding behind a big truck. Most demonstrations I've ever witnessed or partook in my years was all done on foot.
Yeah, I mean, how are they going to get here, Paul? I understand what you're saying. You know, perhaps they certainly could have set this up differently in not blocking the entire downtown core and basically occupying the entire downtown core. But this is what they wanted to do, Paul.
I believe that they wanted to do this from the get-go.
And they wanted to stay a long time, Paul, right?
The
They wanted to.
organizers knew that they were going to have a whole bunch of paddy wagons hooking in on their way in and out.
Of course.
I believe that's one of the reasons they got that pot of money they did. No,
absolutely. It's very well organized.
Rotten kids.
Okay.
That are taking a hissy fit.
Yeah.
And I think with all the big trucks that are there, box them all up and ship them to Sable Island because they won't be able to eat the horses. They're protected.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for your call. All right. We have one line available, 613-750-1310. Before we get to the 10:30 news here, I'll turn this.
Good morning, Derick.
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm all right, I suppose.
You sound exhausted, Justin, just like many of us.
Yeah, I had a very challenging day yesterday exchanging on social media. It was my own fault for getting sort of sucked into that.
Yeah, I understand. We've all been there, I think.
Yeah. To address, I think your question for this, one of your questions is, should Prime Minister Trudeau address these protesters? And my response to this is, I think, fairly linear. Of course, I'm biased to my own opinion.
Yeah.
But I would engage and participate in dialogue with any group of truckers, protesters, or people who stand up and actually call out King, Beecher, Leach, Tamara Litch, Tyler Russell as not representing them in general or amongst this protest. These are individuals who hold very extreme racist, in some cases anti-Semitic, some cases Islamophobic, a West versus the rest mentality. And talking for Canadian unity, these people do not represent unity at all.
I think you make some excellent points, Justin, and that was my point earlier when someone said, well, he decided before they even arrived. Well, the reason he decided before he arrived is, just as you explained there, is that he understands some of the people that are organizing and leading this group. He certainly would not want to associate himself with it. And I understand that, the issues that the West has and the frustrations that they have, and I sympathize with it 100%.
There's issues across this country, no doubt. But when you start talking rhetoric about us versus them, and them could be a whole, mosaic that is Canada, right? That falls under the banner of them. That's the problem. And I have not seen a group or a single person at Capitol Hill stand up and call these individuals out and say they hold these views. I do not. I am here protesting my right for individual freedoms or group freedoms.
I will.
And therein lies the problem, I believe, and that's why I don't think this protest really holds much ground or legitimacy until that happens.
Okay. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate the call. What I will say, by the way, is I have seen. And I know callers will call in, and so I'll just say it on your behalf. I have seen some of the organizers speak out against some of the things that we've seen, such as the swastikas and the Confederate flag and the desecration of the National War Memorial and so on. I have seen that. So what I would like to see from the Prime Minister is speaking. You don't have to necessarily sit down with everyone. Just speak to those who don't agree with the ideology of some of the organizers and some of the leadership and some of the people that are here. Speak to those peaceful people who are just frustrated with all of the restrictions and the passport and the certifications and so on. Speak to those people. That's what leadership is. All right, I have to head to the news here. Andrew Boyle's going to be mad at me because I'm late. 613-750-1310 is our number. Derick Fage here filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 4th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, minus 13. It feels like minus 20 in the wind. Here's what's making news this hour. A police surge in Ottawa this weekend to send a clear message to the demonstrators downtown. Chief Peter Sloly says 150 extra police will be sent to the areas of the city most affected by the Parliament Hill occupation. Chief Sloly says lawlessness must end in the downtown. This surge sends that clear message. Sloly also says he and other city officials have been receiving death threats over the past couple of days. While there is growing dissatisfaction with the police handling of this massive protest in the city, the mayor says he has faith in the chief and the force. Jim Watson was asked on City News about that aspect and says the entire force was put in a very untenable situation. A continued drop in hospital and ICU COVID patients across Ontario today. The province says hospital numbers down by 163 from yesterday. ICU numbers are down by 24. Still, though, 517 requiring intensive care. 60 more deaths in Ontario have been attributed to the virus, and just over 4,000 new cases being reported in the province today. 339 of them are in Ottawa, 81 in Eastern Ontario, that's 81, 55 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, another 32 in Renfrew County. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. It is the Friday free-for-all here on the Talkback Hour. Derick, Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa and Rogers TV, filling in for Rob. Rob will be back on Monday. Our number here, 613-750-1310. Want to talk to you about anything. Anything you want. Most people, of course, wanting to talk about the protest, the occupation, the demonstration, whatever you need, whatever you want to call it. People are calling it. And by the way, coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, so Tim Tierney, City Councillor for Beacon Hill-Cyrville, and talk to him because you probably heard that Ottawa City Councillors Catherine McKenney, Sean Menard, and Jeff Leeper are going to be joined by residents for downtown walkabouts. Downtown walkabouts starting today and continuing through the weekend. They'll have a nice little walkabout in the downtown area. So we'll get reaction from Tim Tierney.
I've taken to calling that the Justice League.
I like it. I like the Justice League. It's very good. It's very good. You know what? We need the Justice League right now. My goodness, in Ottawa.
I spoke to Councillor Tierney last night, and he has some thoughts. He's got some thoughts.
Okay.
So that's coming up.
I'm looking forward to reaction from Tim Tierney. Steve Warne will be joining us as well. We're going to talk some sports. All-Star Weekend coming up. Is he even going to bother watching it? Canadian men's hockey team. It's going to be, the Olympic hockey team. It's going to be a very interesting look to it this year. We'll talk a little Ottawa Senators as well. And then, of course, we wrap it up on Friday with the Queen's Park in review. That was my best impersonation, by the way, of Rob Snow. Wrap it up all here on Friday. How do you like that, my friends? All right, it is the Talkback Hour, 613-750-1310. Let's head over to Mitch, who's calling from Kingston. Mitch, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I'd first like to say I really appreciate this segment. This is my first time listening, and it's absolutely amazing.
Thank you very much, Mitch. Appreciate it.
So I'm a 22-year-old. I got sent home from school because of the start of COVID. Double vaccinated. I am looking sort of over what's happened in the past week to 2 weeks from when the truckers left on the western side of our country. And I think now we need to stop looking at this as a protest. Like, I feel protests are kind of one spot, everyone goes and is there to support whatever cause. But, like, this has turned into a movement. You have like, every walk of life, every, like, side of your politics, every spot in the world that are now looking at what was at first this anti-vax mandate so that people could do their jobs into a movement of freedom. And I feel like a lot of, at least my angst or anger towards the situation is that certain politicians and people of power in our communities or our country or our provinces, as Pierre would say, they're just jumping on open nerve. It's like every time you hope that they're going to come out and say, you know what, like, we're doing our best to support and meet the needs of people.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're a fringe minority. No, you're a terrorist. No, you're not a Canadian because you're supporting these truckers. And I think that's where you would have so many more people show more respect and dignity towards certain people in our political views if instead of attacking people who support this movement, they, like a lot of people have been saying, they conversate with them and see what people actually have to say about this.
Mitch, for a young man, I have to say you spoke so eloquently, and I agree. This is no longer a protest. This really has become a movement because it's not just happening here in Ottawa. It's happening in other places across the country. It's happening in other countries. You have people from other countries who support this idea of lifting the restrictions and the passports and the certifications and so on, who are showing their support. And I think that you've hit the nail on the head, that it has now become a movement, and that is, people need to, it has to be taken seriously because people's lives have been affected incredibly on both sides. There's no denial here that there is a pandemic and that people have died in the millions, but there's also so many people that have been affected with their mental health and financially and the economy of countries around the world. Mitch, really appreciate the call. Excellent call today. All right, we've got one line open, 613-750-1310. Let's head over to Francine from the East End. Francine, what are your thoughts on the protest?
Hi, Derick.
Hi there.
I'm a little ticked off with this Trudeau. I think he should come out and speak out. I don't support the Canada United, that organization themselves, if there's a couple of bad grapes in that group.
Right.
But what I do support is the truck drivers, that if they don't want to get vaccinated, I don't think that it should be forced upon them to lose their job. It doesn't make sense. For those truck drivers that deliver food, how many people do they see along the way when they're heading and doing their job?
That's a great point, Francine.
And when they arrive at Loblaws or what have you, do people not shop for food that are not vaccinated?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to show your vaccine certification to go in.
Food has to be vaccinated to provide the food to the person who's not vaccinated. How does that make any sense?
Well, and Francine, on that topic, if you work, let's say you were a restaurant server, you do not have to be.
Actually, who is a restaurant server, and the secret is she's not vaccinated.
Because you don't have to show proof of vaccination. Now, I will say this, Francine. Just give me a moment. I will say this: that each restaurant can certainly put in, implement.
Yes.
If they wanted to, they could implement it themselves. But
yes, exactly.
It is not a restriction for the province of Ontario, right?
No. And the thing is, and the reason why, so there's a bit of hypocrisy there with politicians, don't you think? The reason why they don't do that is because, first of all, they're having problems hiring people to begin with in restaurants.
Yeah.
So if they were to put that mandatory, let me tell you, there'd be a lot of shortage of waitresses and waiters.
Well, and we might see that, going back to your point about truckers, we may see that in that industry as well. Yeah. They are also short of thousands of people in that industry.
And that's going to make it even worse.
And it could make it even worse, absolutely. Francine, appreciate the call.
Okay,
thank you so much for calling in today. Let's head over to Michelle in Ottawa South. Michelle, what are your thoughts on this protest demonstration occupation?
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, your Rob Snow sounds like Beetlejuice, so I don't know, you need to work on it.
Oh no, I've just insulted Rob there. Don't tell him. Don't tell him when you call in next week.
I will not. But listen, I have to tell you, I was very pleasantly surprised this morning, and thank you for pushing back with Yasir. I respect that interview.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome, and I sincerely mean that because I follow the news around all over, and I'm finding I'm very disappointed. Today I was really, really surprised and very impressed with how he handled it. And I would have pushed back a little more, especially when Yasir said with the leaked emails that the Conservatives were using this to turn into a political movement.
Well, all of the parties are turning it into a political movement.
I know, and
right?
That's what I would have said to him.
So frustrating. I should. Yeah, listen. You're on the spot. You're doing live radio. There. I mean, with 8 minutes with Yasir. Certainly, if I had more time with him, I probably would have pressed him more and pressed him with the point I'm trying to make is you don't have to sit down with organizers and the leadership of this protest to speak to some of the people, and a lot of the people who support the idea behind this being we want, stop with the restrictions with passports and certifications and lockdowns. You can speak to those people. Stop doing the us versus them. That is not leadership. Leadership takes understanding. It takes patience. It takes a good ear. And it takes, if necessary, then, you help educate people if you feel that what they're saying to you is counter to what you believe, right?
I agree. And I would just also add to that if you are a leader and the request is to speak to us, now at this point, he's exacerbating the situation. And because this is Black History Month, I'd like to say, wow, what a leader Chief Sloly is. If he was my father or my brother or my son, I would be so bursting with pride I couldn't contain myself. And I pray for a peaceful weekend.
Me too.
This weekend.
Yeah.
And I ask God that he keeps all of the brave men and women who have to come out and try and keep peace this weekend. And again, if the leader would come out and talk to people, this would go away. There's ways to negotiate. And this week I found that Mr. Watson has been doing all of the fighting for Mr. Trudeau. And I can't help but wonder, based on Jim's record, if Jim was actually running again, would we be able to see him? I followed him around the news style. I saw him on CTV National.
Mm-hmm.
And when that interview finished, I turned to CBC National. There was Jim. When that interview finished, I turned to CTV Local. And there was Jim. Bang, bang, bang. And then right to CBC Local.
Oh, yeah.
And
He's
dancing all. And with each call, these stories got progressively a little saltier. And there is nobody I've heard that is supporting that repulsive, unknown person who came with the Confederate flag. We have no idea who this person is. They're repulsive and sickening, and I agree, Michelle. Find out who it was.
Michelle, appreciate I've got to let you go because we've got a lot more calls going into the last quarter here, the last quarter of the Talkback Hour. Thanks, Michelle. Our number again, 613-750-1310. It is the Friday free-for-all. Everyone wants to talk about the protest. That's okay. But if you want to talk about something else, you can certainly give us a call. 613-750-1310 is our number. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying. And then I shut my business down for, I think, a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries, started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. But we've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting, and anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not, but more so now because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff, and then again, their situations and their circumstances change.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
It is the final quarter of the Talkback Hour. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News. Thanks to everybody for calling in so far. Our lines have lit up. By the way, I'm getting some messages as well on Twitter. Sean saying, Derick, in the last 12 months of COVID, there were no issues with trucker vaccines. Why is it an issue now? It's insane. He's got a point. Omicron is obviously the reason, right? More contagious, faster spreading. David, you want to jump in here?
That's just such a good point. I mean,
it really is.
Not only
so for 20 months, it was like, you don't need one. And then all of a sudden, it's like, no. Because we talked about it yesterday. The United States said they were going to do it. Then we implemented it. And then the United States implemented it.
It went tit for tat and it was reciprocal. But the whole thing, there was some public opinion polling that came out a few months ago that showed the majority of people would be in support of that. That was in the peak of Omicron. We were freaking out. Oh my God, Omicron. This is like pandemic 2.0. We're back to square one. How many times did we say that? We're back to square one with this variant. We got to start over. We got to scrap the playbook and keep going. And here we are 6 weeks later. Nobody's talking about Omicron. We're talking about getting back to normal.
I know.
And we're still chasing down this policy.
Well, and Michelle had a good point, and callers earlier in the week had a good point. Like, you're a trucker. You're by yourself in a truck going back and forth delivering goods. How many people do you encounter? Anyway, and Omicron's here already is another argument people are making. All right, I should get to some calls because I want to run out of time here. Let's head over to Ron, who's been very patient from Gloucester, wanting to talk Aaron O'Toole. Ron?
Yeah, hi, Derick. Nice to hear you.
Nice to hear you.
I got to thank David for helping me straighten my thoughts on this.
Okay.
It was on Mr. O'Toole. I got home from work after he had been ousted, and I looked at clips from CBC, CTV, Global, and City News, and I couldn't help but notice that every one of the reports said the exact same thing, that Aaron O'Toole got ousted because he was trying to move the party to the center.
Right.
That is such nonsense.
Really?
We are the center already.
Okay, I see.
And we will always be the center.
Interesting.
He was trying to move us so far left, it's unbelievable.
Okay, that's a great. I'm glad you called in, Ron, because that's not an opinion I've heard. I feel the opposite. I actually feel that he moved to the center. And that's why his membership is upset and disappointed with him, and that's why he's been booted.
No, I've always felt that conservatives actually have always been the center.
Okay.
And that's my opinion. But what bothered me, it was verbatim, Derick. They said the exact same words verbatim, almost like a memo got sent out or something.
Interesting.
It's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah.
And as for the trucker, and I love that, the trucker movement.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
The New Freedom Movement, absolutely. I've donated money. I'm going to head down again tomorrow, and I will give a cash donation if they want to try to shut everything down. This is important. Just look what Scott Moe is doing in Saskatchewan. He's been honest with his people. He's been forthright about what's going on. And, we need a Scott Moe.
All right. Thank you very much for the call, Ron. Be safe. Be safe down there, and, be kind. Everybody that's going down there, be safe, be kind. And I'm not just talking about the protesters, the counter-protesters, residents. Let's try to, keep things calm down there. Let's head over to Irene from Ottawa, who wants to talk about the protest. Irene, what are your thoughts?
Yes. My thoughts are, first of all, I'd like to know where the PSAC is, because PSAC loves protests. And these are basically blue-collar workers. Where the hell are they? I'm sorry I said that word. But where are they? They're always there whenever anything else is going on. Second thing I'd like to bring up is, where's the NDP? They're supposed to represent blue-collar workers, right? How come they're not there negotiating? Third thing I'd like to bring up is about the statues.
Okay.
Going on and on about the statues.
Right.
Well, where was everyone when they went after Sir John A. Macdonald, the first Prime Minister? Their statues, they dumped it in the water.
Different situations, Irene. You have to admit, it was. We're talking about different situations, right?
It's a different situation, but they're still statues.
Yeah, there's still important monuments to many people.
He was the first Prime Minister of the country, and all that sort of stuff. And then the other thing I get very upset with is that the mayor of Ottawa he seems to be fear-mongering people.
Oh, there's a lot of sensationalism going on, Irene. I agree with.
And like he's creating fear and all this, there could be knives and all that. Well, what about all the guns in the other neighborhoods that are illegal?
Yeah. Okay, Irene, I appreciate the call. I just want to make sure we get to, because our lines are lighting up. I want to get to a few more people here. Ed from Ottawa. Ed, you want to talk about the protest as well? Go ahead, Ed.
Hi. Well, I just really quickly, I just wanted to state that I don't support and condone any racism, and that I'm fully vaccinated as well.
Yeah.
But I don't support the fact that people have to be forced vaccinated, and you cannot tell me that it's a choice when you are choosing your livelihood and provide to your children if you don't get vaccinated.
Right.
It's not fair for the nurses that 1 year ago they're heroes. Nowadays, they're criminals that they don't even deserve to provide their families. That is outrageous.
And what about the argument that, to go to school here in this country, you in this province, I should say in particular, that you need to get vaccinated. Your children need to get vaccinated.
That is perfectly fine. Like, I understand the concerns that we need to cater to the society and to everyone's health. But you cannot tell me that specifically a healthcare worker that put her life at risk a year ago, her life is worthless right now. It's just super disrespectful and heartbreaking for them.
Ed, I appreciate the call. I want to get to a few more calls before we get to the news here. Thanks so much. Let's head over to Rodney from Ottawa. Rodney, what are your thoughts on the protest?
All kinds of thoughts on the protest, but you sparked a little bit of conversation, and it's sort of been going on. There's something I got to jump in on.
Sure.
Before I go to the other things, and that's to do with the trucker that's in the cab all by himself. And then that's the same trucker that I'm guessing he has a total washroom system in his cab.
Yeah, many.
I know what he doesn't have.
What's that?
At some point on the road, he's going to stop and maybe fill up with diesel. And then I'm going to think of a friend of mine that did a road trip last summer because he couldn't fly internationally, and he's actually a radio announcer too.
Okay.
But he actually went out west, and we'll think of Rob because Rob went out east. But we'll sort of direct this at my friend, and as he's coming back, and it's we'll call it the Robicron, the one that Rob was really concerned about.
Right.
And this flu is a new strain, and it has a strain where it has a long incubation period where you have no symptoms, where you spread. And then when it hits you, it hits you really bad, and you end up in hospital. And
sometimes,
he's at the gas station, and he's got a lot of things on his mind because he's got to get his wife back to work, and the kids are going to school, and the summer's almost over. And he accidentally picks up the diesel instead of the gas, but he puts it down, and then, whoop, he sneezes and puts his hand up, and I forgot to mention to you that there was a trucker that had a bad case of the Robert Cron that, wasn't getting symptoms yet, but he's at his most infectious stage.
I see where you're going, Rodney. Rodney, I want to take one more caller here before I get to the news. Rodney, I think everybody got the point. I appreciate the call. Reagan from Renfrew, you have the last word, Reagan.
Okay, I only have one word to say about the movement.
Okay.
Since we're in a democratic country, and if all these people of the movement want to really do something to change the world, then with all the money they've gathered, start their own political party, get elected.
Yeah, and I was actually going to mention that yesterday, Reagan, is a lot of people that are supporting one party over the other and talking about okay, then become a card-carrying member of the party and be a part of choosing the leadership of that party. I mean, people, there are many of us, and myself included, were criticizing the leaders of all the different parties. And, if we're going to do that, at least be a card-carrying member so you can help change that leadership, right? Depending on what party you want to support.
Participate in democracy. It's something.
Yeah. Reagan?
If you don't like it, create your own party.
Maybe they will. Reagan, thanks so much for the call. And for, a little bit lighthearted call here to wrap things up on the Friday free-for-all on the Talkback Hour. Thanks so much for everybody's calls. Of course, we'll do it again on Monday. Do it each and every day between 10 and 11 o'clock. Coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, Tim Tierney, City Councillor for Beacon Hill. We're going to be talking about the walkabouts. All right, we got the walkabouts that are going to be happening downtown with 3 city councillors and residents of Ottawa. Steve Warne will join us. And, of course, we have the Queen's Park in review. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 4th. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, it's minus 13 degrees, and here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Ottawa police are shifting their strategy now ahead of the expected major increase in demonstrators joining the convoy protest in the capital over the weekend. City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney with the details.
We're a week into this protest, and there's no end in sight to what some are now describing as an occupation. Ottawa's police chief, Peter Sloly, now says they're taking a surge and contain approach to this protest. 150 extra police officers are going to be sent to areas of the city most affected by the demonstration. The patrolling officers will be focused on dealing with mischief, hate, harassment, threats, and other intimidating behaviors. Police also going to use concrete and heavy equipment barriers to expand the perimeter around the red zone where the convoy has occupied in the downtown core. Protester vehicles are also going to be directed to designated parking zones outside of the core of the city.
The surge will deliver a clear message to the demonstrators. The lawlessness must end.
This is coming after the RCMP approved the Ottawa mayor's request to have more Mounties come into the city to support city police. The Ottawa police chief says that there have been death threats made against him and city officials over the last 48 hours. He says their top priority is bringing this demonstration to an end. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
City News Time, 11:02. Now, Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson says despite criticism from some in the city, he still has faith in the police chief and the police force. As other convoys of trucks head to Quebec City and Toronto, Mayor Watson says he has passed along some of the tips to his counterpart in Toronto.
Move quickly on the hospitals, because the last thing you want to do is to have someone seriously injured or pass away as a result of hospital emergency routes being blocked off.
Now, Watson adds it's important for the bus routes to remain open, at least as many as possible. City News Time, 11:03, and now your forecast with City News weather specialist Denise Andriacci.
It's a mainly cloudy day today for Ottawa and Smiths Falls, but very cold and below seasonal. Morning wind chills in those minus 20s, so make sure you're dressing for that wind chill. Daytime highs for Ottawa today near minus 13 and will fall to minus 20 overnight. It's a mainly sunny Saturday for both Smiths Falls and Ottawa. Our highs will be around minus 12. The daytime high today, minus 13.
And right now it is minus 13 in both Ottawa and Smiths Falls. City News Time, 11:03. A continued drop in hospital and ICU COVID patients across Ontario today. The province has hospital numbers down by 163 from yesterday. ICU numbers are also down by 24, but still 517 people are requiring intensive care treatment. Now, 60 more deaths in Ontario have been attributed to the virus, and there are just over 4,000 new cases in the province. 339 of them are in Ottawa, 81 in Eastern Ontario, 55 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, another 32 cases today in Renfrew County. StatsCan says the economy lost about 200,000 jobs in January amid the stricter public health rules put in place to slow the spread of the Omicron variant of COVID. The decrease marks the largest drop since January of 2021. That's when the economy has shed 2,800 jobs. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Well, today it's Keep Up with Derick. Rob is off today. He will be back on Monday. Back on Monday to take your calls. Great Talkback Hour today, by the way. Just want to say that again. Thanks to everybody. We had a lot of differing opinions. Thanks for being so respectful as well. Always appreciate it. I'm Derick Fage, host of Daytime Auto on Rogers TV, filling in for Rob here on City News and Rogers TV. You probably have heard in our newscast, we've talked about it the last couple of days, Ottawa City Councillors Catherine McKinney, Sean Menard, and Jeff Leeper are going to be joined by residents for downtown walkabouts. That is starting today. They may be doing their walkabout right now. I am not sure. They're going to continue that throughout the weekend. Tim Tierney is not part of what we're calling the Justice League quite yet. It's my understanding, but he is at an undisclosed location downtown. Tim, thanks for joining us. How are you this morning?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on, Derick. And, it's quite the different visual when you see it on TV versus seeing this occupation in person. Very, very different up front and close.
Well, let's talk about it, Tim. So what is the atmosphere like down there?
Well, like we see presented in the media, it's very loud. The traffic patterns are very difficult to navigate. But at the same time, I think there's a little silver lining in some of what we heard in the 9 o'clock police conference today. I think that is what people wanted to hear, and we look forward to seeing many more boots on the ground. And I have a personal stake in the game here. I have 2 adult children that actually live down here as well, so I think it's very important to secure the downtown.
Tim, what's their experience been like?
Pretty much like everybody else. Noise deprivation, people obviously hanging out in doorsteps. Everything we've heard, very disruptive, and it's not too kind to our city. It's again all about democracy. Fine, come on in, but it changed from a democratic protest to something completely different as an occupation, and we have to address it.
Tim, have you been approached by anybody? Have you had an opportunity or wanted to? Have you talked to any of the protesters at all?
I'd just like to keep moving along. I don't wish to engage. I like to observe, and I've been walking along. Certainly, I've been getting some looks. Obviously, many of the protesters aren't masking up and doing all the things that we've been doing so well here in the city of Ottawa. But I'll continue to observe and report back my thoughts to the police service.
Tim, let's talk about these walkabouts. As I mentioned off the top, City Councillors Catherine McKenney, Sean Menard, and Jeff Leeper are going to be joined by residents, or have been. I'm not sure if they have already started their walkabouts.
They're here actually right on site with me right now too.
Okay, so you have joined the walkabouts, and as a group. You haven't encountered anything? Are you traveling as a complete group at the moment?
Well, we're just actually heading out right now, so you got me right at the start of it, and maybe by the time of the end of this interview, we'll be right into the epicenter of the protest.
Okay, so what's the purpose, Tim? Tell us what's the purpose of these walkabouts?
Well, first of all, this interview would have been very different today if I haven't heard 2 things that I thought were critical. First of all, I've always advocated we needed extra help. We needed the RCMP, and we heard last night that is the case, which is good news. They're coming in. And we also heard today 150 extra boots on the ground, blocking with barricades and heavy machinery. These are all things that we needed. And I just want to start seeing those going into place. I think that is really critical for the people that live down. You got to feel for the people that live down here.
Yeah.
It's just a complete nightmare.
And these protesters have really dug in their heels, and they're saying they're not leaving anytime soon, Tim. And they want certain things done. Of course, the major one, as far as the truckers are concerned, is to drop this vaccine passport mandate for them to do their job, to go across the border, and they're asking the Prime Minister to sit down with at least one or some of the organizers. Do you think he's making the right call in not being willing to speak to protesters, to negotiate with some of this leadership?
Well, again, I leave it to, I wouldn't want to be in that position. I think it's a very difficult position. Personally, I hope some kind of discussion takes place. I mean, we got to ease the tensions here. Look, let's not sugarcoat it. This weekend's going to be a big weekend for the city. If you thought it was a rough demonstration to this point, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad actors that are coming into town. I won't even name them. I don't even want to give them credit.
Yeah.
But they're going to be bringing people with them, and we got to prepare for a very big weekend. And I'm just really hoping and praying that there's no confrontation. And it could be very peaceful, and we can get people towed out that are breaking laws and free up our roadways once again.
Tim, have you had a chance? And some people are having some fun with this one, and I know it's a very serious issue. But have you seen the wooden structure at Confederation Park yet? It seems to be some kind of fuel depot of sorts.
Yes, actually, it's last night when I saw that go up. I did ask the question a couple days ago about is this an occupancy? And I was told it was a transition. Well, clearly it's an occupancy if they're building something. I actually wrote to our chief building official in the city asking that something happened, that this be taken down. So I'm awaiting a response on that.
Okay.
Clearly it's moved into a new world right now where people are erecting things in our own parks.
Yeah, and Tim, so whose responsibility is that?
Well, the chief building officer will have a bit of a hammer in that. But at the same time, it is the MCC land. So they do have a massive role in it as well. And I think we saw the confusion even last night in regards to the NCC saying, no, the tanks are removed. And then 5 minutes later, nope, the tanks are still there.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot that unfortunately has to happen.
Yeah, I don't understand why the NCC decided that they would say that, and it actually didn't occur. Very straight. So, Tim, within that group, a very outspoken group that you're with, Catherine McKinney, Sean Menard, Jeff Leeper, of course, and yourself and the mayor, putting aside the fact that, there are some unsavory characters, there's been some very disgusting situations that have happened with intimidation and desecrating the war memorial and swastikas and so forth. Is there any sympathy for some of the more peaceful protesters that probably came here without any idea of the backgrounds of some of the leadership, but any sympathy of some of these people who they want to move on with life, and that we have to end the lockdowns, we have to end restrictions and passports and so forth. Your thoughts on that? Any sympathy with those thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Look, my late father was a truck driver. So I understand that this is their bread and butter. And at the same time, it's, again, if it was a one-day demonstration, maybe it's a small inconvenience in the city, so be it. They've made their point, but it's time to move on. And that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing horns going all night, fireworks. Look, they did a pork roast down.
Well, they've got to eat, Tim.
I guess so.
I saw the pork roast. It was. I was kind of jealous, to be honest with you. I mean, they had a full-on pig roast down there, not even just a pork roast. My goodness.
Yeah.
So, Tim, for yourself and other councillors that are on the walkabouts, will you be sharing what you're experiencing and what you're seeing on social media throughout all of this?
Absolutely. Look, I'm not the main organizer. I'm just here in solidarity. I got two kids down here. Fellow Councillor Laura Judas is here with me as well, and we're having a look around to see firsthand what people are seeing on the ground, and it's more than what you think it is.
And you know what? Honestly, Tim, I really appreciate that, because that's what a number of people have said. Listen, you can sit at home or sit at the radio station and look on social media and seeing what people want to share with you. So I respect the fact that you're all down there and seeing it firsthand. Tim, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Derick. Have a good day.
Thanks, you too. That's Tim Tierney, City Councillor for Beacon Hill-Cyrville, who has joined the walkabouts that began today and going to happen throughout the weekend. They're going to be joined by residents of downtown as well. So if you're living downtown and you want to be a part of this and show your support with people that are obviously, I wouldn't call it counter-protesting. They certainly are just there to observe and to see and to try to understand what's happening so that they have a better understanding of what downtown residents are going through. So you can follow them on social media to find out more information and to join in. All right, coming up after the break, a little lighter fare. It's a Friday. Let's lighten things up a little bit here, people. Let's talk a little sports. Coming up after the break, Steve Warne, veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster and host of the Sens Nation podcast, joining us as he does each and every Friday. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, we had to face it regards my employee girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have a families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song for my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that would bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
On Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM.
And 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob. Rob will be back on Monday. I have been looking forward to this segment for the last 2 days. You know, there's been a lot of, and for good reason. Listen, a lot of serious news, a lot of serious topics to discuss, but let's lighten things up a bit. And that's why I always enjoy tuning in, especially for the last 20 months. Tuning in on Friday to listen to Steve Warne and Rob Snow talk a little sports, veteran Ottawa broadcaster and host of the Sens Nation podcast. Steve, how are you today?
I'm very good, Derick. Yeah, certainly sports is a nice distraction from everything going on.
Is it ever? Well, let's talk about what's happening this weekend. You know, a lot of people, don't necessarily care about it, but, the All-Star weekend, and it's happening in Vegas, which I think, could add a little bit of fun to it. Steve?
Sure, and I think I've always said about the All-Star game, it's really for the town that's hosting it, for their sponsors, for their fan base. They're the ones that enjoy it most, but there'll certainly be people looking in on it. The skills competition, which goes tonight, that's always a kind of a fun thing to see who the fastest skater is, see who has the hardest shot. And they're even putting a little Vegas spin on things. I think at some point they've got giant playing cards out there where players are going to be shooting at certain cards to try and get 21.
I think Brady Tkachuk's in that one, isn't he?
I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, yeah, I thought I heard that. I thought I heard that earlier today. But yeah, I mean, I think they're going to have some fun, and I agree. It's for the city that's putting it on. It's a fun event, and I would also say it caters to younger people, right? Who want to see their favorite players without their helmets on and, having some fun in the, shootout competitions, and even the All-Star game itself where there's no hitting and you get to see some of that stick handling skill you otherwise might not see during a regular season game. But yeah, for the most part, I think guys like you and I who are super fans, turn our attention away from the All-Star weekend. We watch some highlights. Let's turn our attention to the Olympics and the Canadian men's Olympic hockey team, a very different looking hockey team. You've got the 37-year-old Eric Stahl, and then you've got Mason McTavish and Owen Power, a couple of 19-year-olds. What do you expect from this team, Steve?
Well, it's hard to handicap the field, right, because you just don't know where everybody's game is at today. Even a guy like Eric Stahl, which would be the biggest name on the Canadian team, he's been a free agent. You've got lots of NHL veteran guys that, again, they're playing over in the KHL. So who's watching the KHL exactly? So it is, it's an interesting-looking team. Certainly with Mason McTavish and Owen Power, that adds a real nice component. We're talking about the first overall pick and the third overall pick from a couple of years ago. So that's a nice component to things that didn't really exist in what was also a non-NHL roster back in Pyeongchang in 2018.
Yeah.
So right. I think you look up and down. Every team has got the same challenges. They're not going to be bolstered by NHL talent. So I think Canada's chance at gold is pretty much as good as anyone's.
Yeah, agreed. And I think at least for Sens fans too, they have Jake Sanderson to follow through on the U.S. Olympic team. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. And just what a shame that the World Juniors had to be canceled, and he was captain of that team. So it gives us an opportunity to get another look at Jake Sanderson on a big stage.
Yeah, and he's going to be here later this year with the Ottawa Senators. I don't think there's any question that he's coming out of school once North Dakota has finished up their year. But yeah, this experience in Beijing is going to be a different kind of level. It's one thing to be at the World Juniors. It's one thing to play NCAA hockey and thrive at both those levels, and he has. It's going to be kind of a new level with a lot more mature hockey players that will be probably, as forecheckers go, they'll be on him quicker. And so it'll be a new test for Jake Sanderson, and I think everybody expects him to do great.
Let's turn our attention for a moment to the Ottawa Senators, missing their top three centers. I mean, it's been brutal. The amount of injuries, of course, their COVID situation being so difficult, but there has been some positives. And I think, the biggest one in my mind is Tim Stützle moving over to the center position and looking incredibly comfortable, Steve.
Yeah, it's definitely been, I thought it was a long overdue move. It was done out of necessity, obviously, with all the injuries that they've had. I think he's looked very good there. It's been an adjustment for sure because there's a defensive component, which is just super important in D-zone coverage. And then there's the face-offs. He struggled out of the gate and then got some help with that. And he's just improving in those areas. But when you're a centerman, you have the puck on your stick a lot more. And I think he thrives on that, and you can see it in his game over the last month. He's been a different player. He was always good. I mean, as a rookie, we all were impressed by him, but I think he's taken it to a new level just based on the switch to center, and he's yelling his excitement about being in that position. So it's great to see because he's one of the guys they've obviously got earmarked as one of the cornerstones of the franchise.
Yeah, and I just love his motivation and his work ethic, right? And just the way he's talked about how he's worked on his defensive game and he's put in, all the time and effort in order to get better at the defensive game. And it certainly has shown. It's been amazing. Let's talk about, the biggest questions for the second half. And I think, probably one of the biggest questions is we're moving towards that, March 21st trade deadline. Sens have some pending unrestricted free agents. And I think the biggest one is Nick Paul. Steve, I know they want to keep him. Do you think there's a good chance of them being able to keep him or will he want to test the market?
That's the thing. The plan A is to keep him. He is by far, of the group of UFAs for the coming summer, he is by far the guy they want to get done. But it's not a case of at any price. As long as he's not asking too much, Nick Paul will be an Ottawa Senator this fall. And sometimes I think players need to factor that in, kind of the cost of opportunity. Maybe you take a couple of fewer dollars here to stay with an organization that really believes in you, that you worked so hard. You were up and down on waivers for years with this team and finally established yourself here. You got a couple of years ago that declaration from DJ Smith, buy a house. He's earned his spot on this team. He goes somewhere new. He might make a few more dollars, but now he's sort of in the wild. I think if I'm Nick Paul, I'm sticking around with Ottawa.
I'd say the other two that I would look at would be Tyler Ennis, who he's the last few games has looked great after sitting, and Zach Sanford. But are you really going to get much for these guys? Is it even worth it?
No, I mean the rentals, right? At the end of the day, if they had another year left on their contract and you were looking to move them, then maybe some team would say, okay, we have them for this fall, but their contracts expire. If you're bringing in a rental, you want real impact guys, ideally, to help you for your playoff push. And Ennis and Sanford. Sanford's a guy who's won a Stanley Cup. These are guys who can help for sure, but you're not giving up much for them because they're not going to be, in your top six. They're going to be more support roles, so you're not getting a ton for them. Anton Forsberg's another name I'd throw into that mix.
Yeah.
Because I think they, it sounds like, based on Pierre Dorian's kind of media tour this week, that they might like to keep him around past the deadline so that Gustafsson can keep on playing down in Belleville for the rest of the season. So it's going to be interesting to see if they have him for the rest of the campaign or even maybe back next year, because it's really hard to say what the goaltending is going to look like this fall. Certainly Matt Murray's on a great run, but it's too small a window right now to say, the Cup champ's back, and even if he is back, he has a hard time staying in the lineup.
Oh, no kidding. It's been so frustrating. And Forsberg, I think a lot of people look at him, with let's say the opportunity to re-sign him to a 1 or 2 year contract, goaltenders of the past flashing through people's minds, right? Where they've signed guys like Anton Forsberg who have shown some promise, and then the following season they've just fallen apart, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, you can even look at, to your point, Philip Gustafsson. His play's dropped off a little. Yeah. I wonder if it's maybe a mental thing with him right now, because you go back to last season, he was clearly their best goalie, and he probably wonders, okay, what did I do wrong? And now he's down in Belleville, and he had a tough night the other night. And so, from 1 year to the next, it's hard to say what you're going to get with these guys, because really, beyond Matt Murray, who's struggled the last 2.5 years, by the way, beyond that, there's nobody in the organization who's got a big sample size of being excellent in the league.
Yeah, agreed. Steve, thanks so much for calming all of us here. Just
a nice break.
Giving us a nice break here and a nice distraction with some sports. Steve, really appreciate you joining us again today.
Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too. That is Steve Warne, veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster and host of the Sens Nation podcast. Well, as we wrap up, moving towards the 11:30 mark, we've got your news coming up, and then after that, of course, it is the Queen's Park in review. We may have a few things to talk about. We'll be back with that right after this. I'm Derick Fage, filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, February 4th. Good morning, I'm Danielle Bain. Right now in Ottawa, it's minus 12, feels like minus 21 with the wind chill, and in Smiths Falls, minus 12 as well, feels like minus 18. Here's what's making news this hour. The city should expect a police surge this weekend to send a clear message to demonstrators. Chief Peter Sloly says 150 extra police will be sent to areas of the city most affected by the Parliament Hill occupation. Chief Sloly says the lawlessness must end and says he and other police officials have actually received death threats over the past 2 days. Liberal MP for Ottawa Centre, Yasir Naqvi, told the Rob Snow Show earlier that he has heard many accounts of misery from residents in the downtown core. He says this protest hasn't been peaceful nor lawful. When asked about the Prime Minister's unwillingness to meet with the protesters, he says he understands why Trudeau won't meet with them based on the bad behavior he's seen, like swastikas and Confederate flags being displayed. And the province is seeing a continued drop in COVID patients in both hospitals and intensive care units. The province says the hospital number is down by 163 from yesterday. ICU numbers are down by 24. Still 517 are in the intensive care unit. And the province is recording 60 more deaths due to the virus. There are just over 4,000 new cases in Ontario today. 339 are in Ottawa, 81 are in Eastern Ontario, 55 in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark, and 32 in Renfrew County. City News Time, 11:32. I'm Danielle Bain, and for news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Oh, we're closing in on the weekend. Closing in on the weekend. Oh, my goodness. And a great way to, roll into the weekend is, talk a little Queen's Park, right? What's happening? Is there anything to talk about, Derick? Oh, boy, yeah, there's lots to talk about. That's right. It's time for the Queen's Park in Review. We are joined by Donna Skelly, PC MPP for Flamborough-Glanbrook. Welcome to the show, Donna. Great to have you here.
Good morning.
Good morning. And John Fraser, Liberal MPP for Ottawa South. Welcome, John. How are you today?
Great. How are you, Derick?
Excellent. Thank you. And Gilles Bisson, NDP MPP for Timmins. Good morning, Gilles.
Good morning.
Excellent. Great to have you all here. Let's talk a few things. Let's talk about, first of all, gas prices, because David and I went into shock. We both pulled into the Tim Hortons by the station here, and there's a gas station right beside it, and the gas price was $154.9. Gilles, what are gas prices like out there in Timmins?
Well, my God, that's cheap compared to here. We're $1.68.
What?
$1.68. I went one day, I gassed up at $1.58, and later that day it was $1.68. So
Holy!
It's ridiculous. There's a lack of refining. We understand that. And the public is probably never going to allow another refinery to be built. So I think at one point we need to think about how you regulate the price of gas, the same as we do with a box of beer or a bottle of wine.
No kidding.
Production of milk, etc.
Gilles, I would recommend a protest there in Timmins over gas prices.
Okay. Can't afford to get there.
I'm sorry. I had to go there. Sorry. Donna, what are gas prices like there out in Flamborough-Glanbrook?
They're comparable with Ottawa, and it's such a sticker shock, but that's what happens when you put in a carbon tax.
John, you're here in Ottawa.
Okay. It's not all carbon tax, Donna.
Nice one, Donna. Yeah. Nice hit.
Good sliding in there. Good sliding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's actually supply and demand and refineries, lack of refineries that's causing this. And look, it's a hardship on people. People trying to get to work here in Ottawa with the traffic slowed down.
Yeah,
it's not great for them. I'm not going much past half a tank, but maybe that's just get a wishful thinking, right? Forcing myself to drive a little.
Yeah. John, let me start with you with this one. What's your reaction to the events in Ottawa this week, and the response from the Ford government?
Well, it's an occupation. And the residents of downtown, and actually all people through Ottawa, are being greatly affected by it. It's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's very wrong. And I think here's the way I look at it. I was really a bit
shocked that over the weekend that we didn't hear anything from anybody in the government with regards to the kind of the protest part of things.
Right.
Right? All the awful stuff we saw. Nobody said anything. But not a peep. It came on Monday, a statement that we're taking 10 minutes to write over the weekend. But I tried the mayor on Friday to get a hold of him. I tried him on Saturday. We exchanged messages. I eventually ended up talking to him on Saturday. I was really disappointed that the premier didn't simply phone, or somebody from the government didn't actually make a connection and say, look, we know things are bad down there. I just want you to know we're here. I'm ready to help. For the premier to say, yeah, he's got my number. They got my number. I thought it was a very defensive response. And that's not what we need right now. In a crisis, you don't, you know who your friends are. And they're the ones who reach out to you and say, I'm here for you.
You got to let me jump in.
Oh, yeah. No, I was going to you next, Donna. Yeah, please do.
You got to let me. John,
yeah.
That is just so full of holes. It's unbelievable. Let's start with nobody reached out. The senior minister who happens to live in Ottawa, Lisa MacLeod, called the mayor, who did not return her call. The Solicitor General, Sylvia Jones, is in constant communication with the Chief of Police. The Premier has given his number to just about everyone who has ever asked for it. And the Mayor of Ottawa has never hesitated reaching out and calling the Premier for anything else. He should have picked up the phone. He should have put on his big boy pants. And instead of your party politicizing this, he should have acted like a leader. If he needed more help, he should have reached out himself instead of pointing the finger of blame. We have sent additional John, I let you talk. We sent additional resources. There are OPP officers on the ground as we speak. Every request has been answered.
Donna, who are you saying? Sorry, Donna, I want to jump in here. Who are you saying pointed the finger of blame? Are you saying that Jim Watson pointed the finger of blame to?
Absolutely. If he can't handle the pressure, he pick up the phone. If he wants to talk to the Premier, he's got his number, call him.
Donna, he didn't point the finger. Do you think maybe he's busy?
Do you think maybe the Premier's busy?
I think everybody's busy. Yeah. Gilles, maybe you can calm the waters here, Gilles.
Well, yeah. Listen, this is first of all, people do have the right to congregate and to be able to protest. So let's get that straight out there. But they don't have the right to hold things up, and that's where it's getting rather difficult because people in Ottawa and next, who knows, people in downtown Toronto are not able to go around their regular businesses. Stores can't open, et cetera, because the protesters, which they're lawfully able to do, no question there, are actually doing things that preclude other people from utilizing their civic liberties. So, at one point, somebody's going to have to try to do something in order to diffuse this. And I think always talking to groups is always a good thing. I would encourage the powers to be in Ottawa, federal, provincial, municipal, to speak to these people and just be firm and say, listen, we hear you, we feel your pain, but we're going to get through this not too far down the road as Omicron starts to get under control, and the high levels of vaccination we have, if anybody's holding this up, is people that don't want to get vaccinated.
Well, yes, but Gilles, those are the people that are protesting, right?
That's
and
right.
Gilles, let me just say this though. I see what you're saying. I understand what you're saying, that, there should be a conversation here. I think, part of the reason there isn't a conversation, and we had callers talk about this earlier on in the show and earlier this week as well, is that the Prime Minister doesn't want to associate himself with this protest because of some of the background of some of the leadership and some of the organizers of these protesters. So he feels He may
not like what some people are doing and saying, and with him I feel like that. I've seen some of the antics that have gone on, and I don't condone them. I think they're dead wrong. But all of us as MPPs, I would think on this panel, and members that are elected, we have people in our ridings that have hard positions, people that say tough things, sometimes are disrespectful, but we talk and we listen and agree to disagree.
Yes, but this is a little different here.
No, it's not.
Not different at all.
It's not different at all.
No,
Okay, Donna, how is it not different, Donna? You have, if you look at some of the leadership of these people and their backgrounds, the likes of Pat King, it's absolutely appalling.
Absolutely. And yes, they're still there. And the leadership is dealing with this situation, finding a resolution. But you can't, it's not going to go away by running and hiding, which is what the Prime Minister has done.
I don't disagree with you there, Donna.
So Donna, is the Premier a leader? Is he going to come and
Absolutely, he's a leader.
Yeah. Is he going to come and diffuse this? Because he hasn't said very much. But here's the thing.
Here, let's let John just finish his thought here.
I don't think, and all due respect to Donna and to Gilles, that there's a full understanding of it's not about tough talk. It's not about dialogue. There is actual micro-violence happening in downtown. There is a dangerous situation. There are some very dangerous people there. And if you listen to anything of what the police chief said, that's why we're at where we're at right now. I mean, you have people who've been using horns to disrupt the downtown population for a full week.
John, I understand.
All right.
This is not a protest, it's an occupation, and it's a difference.
As you know,
Go ahead,
the
Donna.
government cannot direct police. We cannot direct police in their actions. If we've given them additional resources, if we were telling them what to do, you'd be in, as alleged, calling us out in police interference.
No, I think we should bring back the ledge, and we should go into the ledge, and I think you should say to your Premier that we all need to go back there one day, have unanimous vote on a bunch of bills, and all condemn what's happening. That's what the Premier should do. If he wants to do something, that's what he can do, and he should call it back. And you should tell him that.
No, I disagree. We have an oversight and emergency management committee. We meet all the time, and it has members from all parties on it, and ministers, whether it's Minister Jones, who is the Solicitor General, or the Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, are questioned on a regular basis. That's where this can be dealt with.
Donna,
we all have to speak with one voice.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with it. I mean, that happening, in this political age, unfortunately, it just doesn't happen. I wish we could work together when it comes to a pandemic and a protest, but people turn it into a political situation. Donna, what I would say is I understand that the Prime Minister doesn't want to associate himself, and I'm agreeing with you to a certain extent. He doesn't want to associate himself with some of these people. However, talk to the people that are there that aren't associated with these people, who may not even understand who's organizing it, right? I mean, not everybody does their homework. And speak to those people and say, I hear you. I want to understand where you're coming from. I mean, show some kind of leadership instead of just saying no and then and a complete divide. And John, I'll throw that over to you. From the beginning, It's been a complete divide here of vaccinated versus unvaccinated as far as the Prime Minister is concerned.
Well, look, I think the thing is I will say to Donna, is I'm really having a hard time recollecting when the Premier's gone out to talk to any protesters at Queen's Park. I can't recall it once. So I don't think that's a great defense. And
maybe we'll see it this weekend and see if he comes out.
I don't think the majority of people are vaccinated. The majority of people want out of this. And I don't think that it's helpful that we divide ourselves. But we do have to have a very clear understanding that there is, that we have democratically elected governments. I mean, you've got, part of this protest is the overthrow of the federal government. I'm not happy with Doug Ford. But I got to tell you, I'm not falling behind any protest or getting near any protest that calls for that. We have a democratically elected government. We have to make decisions. We have to do what's in the best interest of the group. And I think we've got to try to do that with everybody and bring together. And I'm open to dialogue, but not with someone who is using violence to get their point across.
All right,
John,
I got to take.
Should the Prime Minister be meeting with them then, John?
I actually don't think that I would meet with this group of protesters. I think they got to get out of town.
You're contradicting yourself.
I think no, I don't. I'm just saying your argument. I didn't say.
Yeah, his argument. Yeah, I understand your argument.
I was saying your argument is I think the thing is what has to happen here is there's an occupation, and it's not a protest. Let's stop saying protest. It is an occupation, and these folks enough is enough. It's time to get out of town.
All right,
the lies of too many.
I got to stop you there. I'm going to come back. We're going to continue talking on about the occupation demonstration protest, but we'll look at it from some different angles. We'll be back with the Queen's Park in Review right here on the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box, as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years, and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had, layoffs. Maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Getting close to the end here of the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage filling in for Rob. It's the second half of the Queen's Park week in review. Donna Skelly, PC MPP for Flamborough-Glanbrook, joining us. John Fraser, Liberal MPP for Ottawa South, and Gilles Bisson, NDP MPP for Timmins. And I'll start with you, Gilles. Should a special provincial grant be made available to businesses in Ottawa forced to close due to this protest? Mike Schreiner is calling for this.
So is
businesses.
Joe Harden and other local members have been calling for that as well. Yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Like these small businesses and some larger ones didn't ask for this to happen. Now we're finally opened up as of Monday, and they're in this situation where they can't operate. So there needs to be something to offset those losses. It's a regional thing. Who knows? Maybe the same thing will happen in Toronto, but there has to be some form of compensation in order to assist those businesses that are already pretty well on the brink.
Yeah, and so many people just, in general having trouble as well, just trying to navigate through, any kind of financial aid available. Donna, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, we've given them already 3 rounds of $10,000 grants, and of course the support with brakes on hydro taxes and gas, et cetera. I think at this point we're going to get through this, but I'd rather see an end to the protest and the businesses begin to reopen. That's where I would say let's put the energy and the efforts towards that.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say 3 rounds, of course, of money, but because there's been 3 rounds of lockdowns, right, to small businesses. Go ahead, John.
And a lot of them haven't received the money yet from the last round. Right?
That's been. I mean, I know people living downtown, Gilles, in that same position or not living downtown, living and working downtown, and own a small business, and they haven't gotten it from the last round, and now they're trying to navigate it this time around to try to figure out if there's anything available. There's so much frustration. John, your thoughts?
So I think there should be. Donna, the Rideau Center alone is going to lose $20 million.
I think they've already lost $20 million.
Yeah, $20 million. Yeah, and they're going to lose more. So there's millions and millions of costs that are going to people. We're going to have to give people some relief. So I'm really disappointed to hear you say that. And on top of that, I think that the people who organize this occupation should pay for it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know how possible that is. Right.
Maybe part of that $10 million GoFundMe campaign could go towards some of the businesses.
I think that the city of Ottawa, the province of Ontario, the government of Canada, the businesses have to look at that. But
that's an interesting. That would be an interesting olive branch, wouldn't it, from the protesters?
It would be. It'd be.
Really.
Well, they would. They're probably going to be out of cash if they actually got the GoFundMe money by maybe Wednesday next week if they continue to stay. And the prices are going up each day.
Well, and they don't have access, right? They don't have access to that GoFundMe money now. It's been suspended. Right?
Why is it costing somebody their day's wages, right? Why is it costing somebody their day's wages and their day's wages here in Ottawa because they can't go to work?
Gilles, sorry.
There are people costing them that.
I was just going to say, I understand John's point, but the reality, how practical is that for what's going on right now? A lot of these small businesses have already shut down or on the brink of shutting down because of the lockdowns. And not blaming anybody. I think if whoever the government was, there would have been lockdowns. But what we need to do is to make sure that we properly compensate people so they can live through this latest round. And as we get out of this Omicron wave and things start coming back to normal, are able to survive. And that should be the goal here.
Okay, I want to throw this. Hold on. I want to throw this one to Donna. So, Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore, has said, that we're going to have to learn to live with this virus. What do you think, Donna, living with this virus is going to look like in Ontario? Do we have the tools to do that?
We have the tools. We have to recognize that it will be a long process and an evolution, if you will. It's a very fluid situation. For some of us, it may mean that we never, ever, ever give up wearing masks in public. For others, it may be feeling more comfortable when we get to a point where the virus is more contained and we don't have to wear a mask. I'm hoping eventually, and I'm really hoping by the summer, that it means as a change that will allow us to return to what we saw prior to COVID-19. But we don't know. I think it's going to be different for different regions. And Gilles up in Northern Ontario, for fly-in communities, they may want to have stricter regulations than areas that have easy and quick access to healthcare. So I think it will be different, and I think it's going to be a long evolving process.
And John, this province has been one of the most restrictive regions, not just in Canada, but in the world, John. How long can we suffer from these restrictions?
Well, look, I think we've got to get out of this, and we have the tools. And if I could say anything right now, it's vaccinations, and vaccinations. They prevent severe disease, or they greatly reduce the risk of getting the disease, and even more for severe disease, hospitalizations. As you go forward, if you take a look at the impact of Omicron on the vaccinated population and the unvaccinated population, the difference is almost exponential. It's incredible. So we know we need to get vaccinated. And right now, Ontario's at the back of the pack when it comes to 5 to 11-year-olds. And we need to help our public health units by having a strong central campaign promoting 5 to 11-year-old vaccines to protect those kids and their younger siblings who can't be vaccinated. And if we're going to learn to live with the virus, that's the things we got to do right now.
Gilles, your thoughts on this?
Well, I think, yes, we're going to have to figure out how we live with this. That's the reality. I think there's certain things that we do need to do that we're not doing as much as we should. For example, we're all getting phone calls from people who got symptoms who can't either get rapid test or the PCR test and are having to make decisions. Do I go to work? Do I go to school? What do I do? And it spreads out.
Right.
And so what we really need to do is we need to be able to put in place measures that people are able to make decisions based on, what's actually going on in their bodies or their loved ones' bodies, that they're able to have the tools to be able to do that, so that we can get out of here. Because the biggest thing that we have to do is make sure that we manage what's going on in our hospitals. And the fact that people are having to wait for essential surgeries is really, really hard to take, because people will die as a result of our hospitals being bottlenecked with COVID cases. So we need to manage this in a way so that, we can do other things in our healthcare system are equally and probably more important.
We've run out of time. It's always a pleasure having the three of you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thank you, and everybody stay safe out there.
Yeah,
Let's
you
hope
too.
this protest ends peacefully.
Agreed, Donna. Yeah, agreed. Great sentiment. That's Donna Skelly, PC MPP for Flamborough-Glanbrook, John Fraser, Liberal MPP for Ottawa South, and Gilles Bisson, NDP MPP for Timmins. That does it for the Queen's Park Week in Review, and of course that does it for me. Rob Snow will be back on Monday. It's been a real pleasure the past 2 days. Thank you so much for all the phone calls from our listeners and, sharing your opinions and being respectful, sharing your opinions. Really appreciate the calls. Don't forget, the Talkback Hour returns on Monday, so write that number down, 613-750-1310. Sam LaPrade, the Sam LaPrade Show coming up next, so don't go anywhere. And we'll see you next time here on Rogers TV City News.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit